That guy was 23 years old and had never achieved anything in life. Even back in school, he used to get beaten up by his classmates. After turning 18, nothing changed. No job, no power. Ninomiya was nothing. During the talent evaluation, he attempted an awakening, but everyone laughed at him for having no power. What nobody knew was that in his hidden window, he had awakened as the master of traps, an S-rank ability capable of dominating and annihilating everyone with the snap of a finger. As the show begins, the host welcomes viewers to the news segment about hunters. She then introduces her guest for the evening, the A-rank hunter, Ibuki Yugo. She congratulates him on leading a successful raid and asks for his thoughts on the battle. He replies that it was a perfect match for his flame mage class. In his room, a 23-year-old young man named Ninomiya Tsukasa watches everything unfold. Back on the show, the audience admires the hunter as he talks about high-tier classes. The young man wonders why he can't be like the guest. Just then, his status screen opens, revealing his data and his S-rank class. He then laments, telling himself that he is also an S-rank. The scene changes, explaining that the world now revolved around dungeons. Portals had simply appeared across the globe, leading to completely unknown territories. Inside the dungeons, dangerous traps and fierce monsters blocked everyone's path. But mysterious items, beyond human comprehension, also lay dormant inside. There was an elixir that could instantly heal any wound. There were also dragon horns that were much harder than diamonds. Those who obtained these items gained immense wealth and power. At the same time, people began to awaken to so-called classes. Upon awakening, their physical abilities improved, and they could use new techniques. Returning with loot from the dungeons, these people were called hunters. An economy based on an extreme hunter meritocracy then emerged. Even someone in dire circumstances could completely change their life. His S-rank Trap Master class controls all traps. Awakening a high-level class truly changed a person's life. Upon awakening the Trap Master class, he discovered he was an S-rank. Controlling the traps inside dungeons was the same as controlling everything. When he awakened this class, he celebrated his incredible luck. But that day didn't end the way he had hoped. In a flashback from 2 years ago, an evaluator instructs him during his license test. He then extends his hand, shouting to activate his trap skill. Facing the training dummy, his skill simply doesn't seem to work. He's shocked, realizing his skill isn't activating at all. Asking what's wrong, the evaluator approaches him, not understanding the situation. Saying it's nothing, he asks the man for just one more chance to try. He then uses both hands, struggling to activate his skill on the dummy, but he fails again, drawing the attention of everyone watching the test. Adjusting his glasses, the evaluator watches him with a very serious expression. He brings his hands to his face, telling himself this can't be happening. In the audience, everyone starts to mock and laugh at the young man's embarrassing situation. The evaluator then asks what he's doing and shows him his own status screen. It explains that the skill activates pre-existing traps inside dungeons. He then realizes his ability can only work inside a real dungeon. After hearing the explanation, the evaluator just stands there, staring at him in silence. The man says that some people fake their ranks or confuse delusions with reality. Shouting, he says he's a real S rank and points to his status screen. But the evaluator explains that no one can see another person's status window. He insists on being tested in a dungeon, so they can be sure of his class. But the evaluator refuses, explaining that entry is forbidden without proven combat power. Asking what he should do, he is at a loss for how to prove his strength. The man then says that exploring dungeons wasn't the only job out there, and so he ended up failing to become a real hunter. The alternative job he managed to get was at the Hunter Association. There, in the training room, several hunters were practicing their combat skills. Inside the ring, a man yells at him and charges forward. He then lands a blow to his face, knocking him back hard. Grabbing his hair, he tells the young man to do his job properly. Another hunter hits him, calling him a punching bag. The impact sends his body flying violently against the ring floor. Even after failing the exam, his enthusiasm was recognized, and he was given a job. The same man from before says he still remembers him very well. He reminds him of middle school, when he went around claiming to be an S-rank hunter. That guy was Asanuma, a classmate from elementary school who takes out his frustrations on him. Even while being beaten, he insists that he's a true S-rank hunter. His classmate then glares at him with a look of pure disbelief and anger. Landing a punch, he yells for the young man to just admit the truth. He then questions why an S-rank would be taking a beating like that. Remembering the promise, he brings up the escort permit for non-hunters. Lying on the ground, he remembers the other man promised to be his sponsor if he could endure it. Annoyed by his insistence, his classmate turns to leave, but he stops for a moment, just watching the young man on the floor. His determined gaze doesn't waver, staying focused on his main goal. Saying he understands the obsession, he finally seems to agree to the request. With a smirk, he says he'll give him one last final test. Outside, he asks what kind of final test it would be. Replying that it's simple, he approaches with his hand in his pocket. Showing the signed permit, he says the test is to take it from him. Even though he's injured, he just stares at the paper in front of him, but to get the document, he'll have to endure beatings from the others. He recognizes the guys who used to torment him with Asanuma, but he accepts the condition. Saying he has no choice, he faces the group to earn his way into the dungeon. Taking many hits, he remains standing while they yell at him to fall. Noticing his persistence, his classmate comments that he really wants to go to the dungeon. Showing the paper, he says that if the kid is that determined, then he states that for that very reason, he can't let him go. His eyes widen as he watches the paper being torn up right in front of him. He says that trash shouldn't have hope, and that he would crush that feeling. Gritting his teeth, he can't say a single word after hearing that. Screaming Asanuma's name, he lunges forward and tries to grab his former classmate. With a quick move, he manages to grab the hunter's hand tightly. Using a dagger, his classmate strikes the young man's hand directly. The other hunters watch, commenting on how cool the skill was. Saying he failed, the hunter turns his back and tells the young man to give up. He then pulls the dagger from his hand, cursing for being deceived. The weapon vanishes, confirming it was all a lie from the start. The system does allow for escorts, but all responsibility falls on the sponsor. Since there are only downsides, no one risks sponsoring a non-hunter. So it was obvious Asanuma never intended to keep his word from the beginning. Even knowing this, he had no choice but to cling to hope. He needed a chance, as it was his only motivation to keep going. If he could just get into a dungeon, his life could change completely. Believing in that possibility was the only thing keeping him on his feet. Suddenly, a strange and dangerous phenomenon tears through the city sky. It expands, forming a portal as everyone looks up in fear. A man screams in desperation, not understanding what's happening. Another person yells, warning him to watch out for what's behind him. Just then, a building starts to crumble, causing everyone to run for cover. Watching the sky, one of the men is completely paralyzed by the sight. A strange anomaly appears, rapidly expanding and covering the entire city. The destruction begins, with buildings and even traffic lights collapsing everywhere. Lying on the ground, the young man notes they barely escaped the debris. On the big screens, the host from before returns with an emergency alert for everyone. She then reports that dungeon breaks have occurred simultaneously all over the world. As she speaks, an energy blast hits another building, causing more destruction. The man stares at the scene, still unable to believe what is happening. Just then, a giant monster appears between the buildings, roaring at the people. Another man screams, completely paralyzed with fear at the sight of the gigantic creature. The monster attacks him, causing him to cower to protect himself from the blow. Everyone desperately wonders if the entire world has really become a dungeon, but the young man realizes that if this is true, things might be different. His status screen appears, reminding him that he controls traps inside dungeons. With a smile on his face, he finally sees a chance to change everything. He now realizes he can use his abilities, preparing himself for the fight. That chaotic event became known as the Great Dungeon Break. Suddenly, everyone's daily life became a dangerous dungeon. Using his ability, he begins to scan the entire area around him. If the world is turned into a dungeon, he can identify all the traps. With his eyes glowing, he claims he can see all of them now. A map of the city appears, showing the location of every single trap. Celebrating, he shouts that his power is real and that he can be a hunter. Normally, these traps are meant to torment those who enter dungeons, but for him, the situation is different because he can locate them. Knowing where the traps are, he can use them all to his advantage. He faces the situation, ready to use his powers for the first time. Just then, an armed monster appears, threatening to attack some civilians. He prepares to fight, gripping his weapon firmly. He says he can defeat the monster using the power of a trap master. Meanwhile, the monster starts chasing a woman and a child. During the chase, the little boy trips and falls hard on the ground. Screaming for his mother, he sees her running desperately back to help him. But the monster closes in, standing right in front of the terrified child. With a smirk, the creature raises its huge weapon to strike the boy. Then it swings a powerful blow, bringing its blade down with all its might. At the last second, the hunter appears and blocks the monster's strike. Challenging the creature, he tells the monster to come at him with everything it's got. He warns that the trap to finish the beast is already set. Parrying the attack, he manages to deflect the monster's blow. After defending, he jumps back, gaining some distance. From the impact of the block, his makeshift weapon shatters on the ground. The monster seems to laugh at the situation, looking at the now completely unarmed man. The hunter confirms he lured the monster exactly where he wanted it. With a smile, he says the trap is right on that spot. Just then, a trap activates, appearing right behind the unsuspecting monster. The trap strikes the monster, catching it by surprise. Hit by the blow, the creature is thrown back by the force of the impact. Immediately after, a giant pendulum hits it with a fatal blow. Celebrating his victory, he yells that he finally managed to use his power. He declares that this is his way of fighting, using traps against monsters. In the distance, the mother finally reunites safely with her son. Looking at them, the man says he's glad they're okay. He then thinks about the danger of these monsters, which were tough even for experienced hunters. Just then, he hears a noise and turns to see what it is. Turning around, he sees the mother and son screaming in despair once more. He becomes alert, looking in the direction they were pointing. This time, a group of monsters appears, and he says he's out of time. To handle the situation, the young man decides to use his special ability. Shouting, "Trap activation," he raises his arm towards the monsters. Then, several traps appear simultaneously around all the monsters. He raises his hand and activates another trap, hitting one of the monsters head on. The remaining monsters are trapped in spheres that appear out of nowhere around them. By consuming magical power, he can activate the traps without touching them directly. With the trap activated, a shower of rocks crushes all the remaining monsters. After the battle, a notification appears, showing he has leveled up to 2. His trap activation skill is now 1 level stronger. Being an S rank, he realizes he can learn new skills and grow stronger. The people ask if he was the one who made the rocks fall from the sky. Asking for help, they want to know where they should flee to be safe. He says the priority is to find a safe area, even though he's not a hunter. Inside every dungeon, there is a safe zone, with no traps or monsters nearby. But to locate this area, a large search party is usually needed. The man says they have no way to organize a search party now. Saying it's simple for him, the young man touches the ground with his hand. Using his trap scan, he prepares to find the safe zone. Since he can detect traps, a place with none of them is a safe area. With his eyes glowing, he says he can see exactly where the place is. He then informs the group that the safe area is Higashikawa Park. Asking them to follow, he says they need to trust his ability. Agreeing, they say they have no other choice and run after the young man. Arriving at the park, everyone celebrates finally being in a safe place. Relieved, they realize there are no monsters and feel safe from danger. The mother and son he saved thank him profusely for all his help, but he suddenly realizes something and moves away from the group of survivors. Running away from the park, he leaves everyone behind without any explanation. He thinks that now that he is awakened, he possesses the strongest eyes of all. If a place with no traps is safe, then a place full of them is the opposite. That place, protected by traps, must have something very important inside. He then thinks about the possibility of a powerful item hidden in that location. Decided, he runs towards the building, completely ignoring all the dangers. He believes that if he can get the item, his life will change forever. A voice then asks what kind of rookie is running around alone. Dragging their weapon on the ground, the person slowly approaches him. It was his old colleague who calls him the S-rank liar, Ninomiya. Surprised, he turns and recognizes the person who just arrived. Confirming his suspicion, he finds Asanuma right there in front of him. He wonders what Asanuma is doing in such a dangerous place. He then questions if his former colleague is there for the same reason. Asanuma says he ended up there while avoiding monsters on the way. Saying there are no monsters here, he drags his weapon across the floor, but he warns that there is a dangerous human advancing towards the young man. The young man sees the reflection of his former colleague in his eyes. Shouting, Asanuma attacks him with a blow, which he manages to block at the last second. He begs him to stop, but his colleague says he doesn't care about the emergency. Seeing that his warning is useless, he faces Asanuma, unsure of what to do. The man says the world is done for, and now it's survival of the fittest. With a smile, he says he's going to test if killing people raises his level. Noticing his insanity, the young man also spots his strange movements as he walks. He notices that his steps seem to be avoiding something on the floor. Asanuma asks if he noticed his movements and says he'll reveal his secret. Showing a radio communicator, he reveals that he's safe thanks to that device. He realizes the item is a locator, but not as precise as his own ability. That device was a high-precision luxury item, very rare to find. Asanuma says he just got it by looting an equipment store during the chaos. Shouting that he knows the location of all the traps, he says he isn't afraid. Determined, he decides to catch him off guard using his forced trap activation skill. He then focuses on the trap right above his opponent's head. Yelling to activate the trap, a magic circle suddenly appears on the floor. Looking up, Asanuma realizes the ceiling trap was unexpectedly activated. With the trap activated, a shower of steel rains down on him with full force. Positioned for combat, he watches the result of his newly used skill. With a smile, he believes he's finally managed to hit his old schoolmate. He then approaches the fallen body, hoping the fight is over. But suddenly, he realizes his opponent is getting up from the ground. Asking what that was, Asanuma calls the trap a pathetic attack. He then realizes the young man really does have a trap activation skill. He then notices his opponent has some kind of invisible guard protecting him. That defense device creates a special barrier that protects the hunter's body. With a smile, Asanuma asks if he hadn't warned him about his looting before. He then reveals that he also looted the invisible guard from the equipment store. Shouting, he says that with both items, he can join the elite hunters. Saying he's on another level, he charges forward to attack the young man with everything he's got. He then lands a powerful blow, hitting the young man right in the stomach. The impact sends the young man's body flying backward, crashing hard. Asanuma looks down at him on the floor, asking if he caught him off guard. He says he always teaches him the same thing during their training. First, you land a blow to make them crawl, and then you strike again. Shouting, he says the fools at the association will see his power. With an insane look, he declares that this is the beginning of his legend. On the ground, the young man just stares, watching his former colleague approach him. But he dodges and lands a precise blow to his opponent's face. Complaining, he says he was always treated badly for being just a D-rank hunter. Shouting, he claims his power isn't limited to that, and that he can show more. Realizing he's going to get beaten like this, he knows he has to do something fast. Preparing a counterattack, his hand charges with energy to use a new skill. Then he points his hand and uses the trap activation on his opponent directly. Seeing the trap appear, Asanuma just laughs and says it was too obvious. He then destroys the trap with a single blow, shouting that he'll get even stronger. His plan is to get stronger by taking more rare items from high-level dungeons. Desperate, the young man tries to activate another trap to hit his opponent, but he dodges them all, saying he'll kill everyone who looked down on him before. He realizes it's useless, as the trap locator helps him dodge. Even if he landed a hit, he remembers the invisible guard would protect him from fatal blows. Facing his opponent, he feels completely out of options to win the fight. Just then, a status window appears before him, indicating a major change. It said that he had gained a new skill from using his old one so much. He understands he got the skill by using the technique repeatedly, and wonders what it is. The new skill is called Trap Creation, which creates new traps with mana. Shocked, he realizes he can generate traps and might be able to win the fight, but Asanuma interrupts him, calling him human trash with an angry shout. Seeing his stance, he asks what kind of strange position that is for a fight. His hand glows with energy as Asanuma reminds him about the first blow. Shouting, he says he'll give him what he deserves with his new power. Generating and activating traps on his own, he prepares to use this unknown power. Then he unleashes his new skill, shouting the name of Trap Creation. The new skill creates a trap, which appears right in front of his opponent. He asks why there's a trap there, saying it's impossible. He didn't detect anything, so the trap hits him head on. Hit by the trap, his body is thrown back by the impact. With a smile, the young man celebrates that his new skill actually worked. He explains that with trap creation, he can create a trap in an empty space. Now he's sure that with this skill he can finally win the fight, but Asanuma doesn't believe a piece of trash like him could create traps out of thin air. He says he's not like Asanuma because he's an S-rank trap master. With a smile, he says that's why he can use this kind of power. Then he uses trap creation again, unleashing the skill with full force. A magic circle appears and traps Asanuma, who is left stunned by the attack. A trap falls from the ceiling, hitting his opponent square on the head. Confused, he wonders why a bucket just fell on his head out of nowhere. The young man realizes that with his current power, this is all he can manage. Creating larger and more lethal traps seem to require much more magical power. Laughing, Asanuma asks if that pathetic bucket was the limit of his power. He then explains that the goal wasn't to hit him with the bucket, but something else. Confused, his opponent looks at the ground, trying to understand what he meant. At that moment, a trap activates and he realizes what's happening. He understands that there was already a trap there right under his feet. With this, he realizes the bucket was just bait to lure him in. Completely surprised, he stands frozen as the trap prepares to strike. A giant saw then erupts from the ground, advancing rapidly toward him. Screaming in pain, he tries to protect himself from the spinning blade's blow. He manages to stop the saw, but he's pushed back by the force. The impact throws him off balance, and he ends up being flung far away. Fallen on the ground, he feels the hit but can't get up in time. Another trap then activates, this time appearing right behind his back. With a cry of pain, he is hit by a wall of needles. The invisible shield begins to crack, showing it won't hold for much longer. He complains about being hit by another trap and tries to run, but he realizes that if this continues, his invisible shield will break. With a look of despair, He tries to flee, but it's too late. Running, he sees another trap right in front of him, blocking his path. From the ground, an electric fence appears and strikes him. He tries to steady himself, but his feet seem to be stuck to the ground. Realizing he's at his limit, he knows he can't take another hit. But another trap is activated, trapping him completely in place. A chain with a sharp tip advances quickly toward him to attack. The chain binds him, sealing his movements and leaving him completely immobilized. Surprised, he sees there's yet another trap, but he can't escape. The young man says that place contains a very dangerous trap combo. It's a mechanism that activates several traps in sequence to defeat tough intruders. Then he says that this is the finale of the activated trap combo. A giant ballista appears, aiming directly at the completely paralyzed hunter. Screaming for help, he says he doesn't want to die and begs for someone to save him. The trap then fires, launching a huge arrow at high speed. He knows his shield won't hold, and that he'll be pierced by the arrow. On impact, his shield shatters, leaving him completely unprotected. Desperate, he tries to run, but it's too late to escape the blow. The arrow hits him and throws him to the ground, breaking his items in the process. Lying there and foaming at the mouth, he sees the arrow missed, but he didn't need a final blow anyway. The shield generator broke after being hit by so many traps. Stepping on the locator, he crushes it and says he wouldn't have lasted anyway. He says Asanuma's defeat was due to not noticing the trap combo. After the fight, he sees a light coming from a crack in the wall. The light was what the countless traps had been protecting all along. Getting closer, he confirms it was the light he was looking for. Looking through the crack, he says he's finally found what he's been searching for. Inside the room, he finds an S-class treasure chest, an ultra-rare item. Hidden items in dungeons were extremely difficult for hunters to find. Because of this, each one had a value that could transform the power of its owner. Opening the chest, he's surprised by what he finds inside, feeling a new energy. Suddenly, his body begins to levitate, surrounded by a mysterious and overwhelming energy. His magical power suddenly increases, and he wonders if it's a boost item. His lack of magical power had prevented him from creating instant death traps before. But with the Archmage's orb, his magical power increases, and he can generate traps. Determined, he clenches his fist and prepares to test his newly acquired power. Before him, a giant insect-like monster appears, ready for combat. It was actually several insects with glowing eyes and sharp claws ready to attack. Seeing the large monsters, he considers them worthy opponents for his first real test. With his hand outstretched, he shouts to use his trap creation skill. His skill creates traps that fire at the monsters with firepower. The Hellburner trap hits the monsters, engulfing them in a sea of flames. Seeing the result, he confirms that the lethal trap worked, thanks to the orb's power. Near the fire, two men approach, noticing the destruction around them. Getting closer, they are shocked to see the monster's completely charred carcass. They wonder if an S-rank hunter did that to the monster. Observing from afar, he recognizes them as the Association's defense force. The men then order him to leave, saying the evacuation is already over. Soon after, another man arrives, announcing that the area boss has been found. Listening to the conversation, he discovers that the boss monster is in the stadium. Being the strongest monster in the dungeon, the area boss was the target. By defeating it, all other monsters disappear and the place becomes safe. He understands that these rules apply, even if the dungeon appeared suddenly. Saying the battle has already begun, the hunters rush to the stadium. With a smile, he says he has no choice but to go too. Near the stadium, the movement of monsters seem to have increased significantly. Inside the venue, a huge monster appears in front of all the hunters. One of them then charges forward, delivering a powerful blow against the giant monster. One of the hunters warns them not to get distracted by the small monsters that appear. A female hunter questions this, saying that those monsters were the best they could handle. If those were the small ones, she fears how strong the area boss must be. Suddenly, they all turn at the same time toward a new threat that emerges. On the stadium's ceiling, the boss monster appears, observing everyone from above. Opening its mouth, it charges a huge sphere of energy to attack the hunters. The creature then fires the shot, hitting the ground with an explosion of energy. Everyone screams to run as the heat blast hits everything around them. The range and power of the attack were so great that everyone was stunned. The hunters gather, preparing to face the new and powerful threat. The leader yells for them to evacuate, warning that the stadium is collapsing from the attack. High above, the monster just watches the destruction, its wings spread in the sky. Everyone starts running desperately, trying to escape the falling debris. The monster then lands on the ground, destroying everything with the impact of its landing. It attacks again, causing rocks to fall from the ceiling toward the hunters. Screaming for her superior, the female hunter sees a colleague being crushed by the rubble. From a distance, The monster just observes the scene, showing no reaction. Its eyes glow as it prepares to continue the attack against everyone. The female hunter realizes they are no match for that monster's power. With a roar, the area boss displays all its ruling power. Arriving at the scene, the young man sees the boss monster right in front of him. He then tells the monster to wait for him, preparing for battle. With a smile, he says he's going to set a death trap for the creature. He faces the area boss, knowing what must be done now. If he defeats the monster, all the fighting in this area will finally be over. He then vows to end this with his master-level power. The monster roars, staring down the young man right in front of it. The hunter leader yells for everyone to dodge, while others call for the medical team. He then orders the artillery squad to fire with everything they've got. The hunters fire their arrows, which explode upon hitting the monster's body. The attack seems to have worked, hitting the giant creature's head dead on. With a smile, the leader asks if they managed to hit the monster, but the smoke clears, and the monster appears without a single scratch. He realizes the monster has auto-regeneration and healed the damage instantly. With minor wounds healing on the spot, a fatal blow was needed to defeat it. The young man says the opponent is even tougher because the damage doesn't stack, but he believes he can win and that it's not an impossible opponent to defeat. He then shouts, drawing the area boss's attention to his trap. The huntress then shouts, trying to draw the monster's attention to herself and offering herself as a target. Even feeling useless in the fight, she's willing to be a decoy to help, but the monster ignores her and charges its attack, aiming right at her. Thinking her end has come, she just closes her eyes, waiting for the blow. Suddenly, she wakes up in a different place, not understanding what happened. Opening her eyes, she sees the young man saved her and is carrying her in his arms. Startled, she asks where they are, noticing the magic circle on the ground. He explains he saved her with a teleportation trap just in time. This trap was dangerous because it could teleport to an unintentional location, but when manipulated, it could be used for rescues as a non-offensive trap. Asking who he is, she doesn't understand how he used a trap. Saying there's no time, he asks her to use her radio to send a warning. He tells her to say a hunter is going to fight the boss alone. Surprised, she questions what he's saying about taking the monster to the city, but he says the evacuation is complete and leaves, leaving the huntress behind. The huntress is left confused by his attitude, just watching him go. The monster slams its tail on the ground, showing its strength to the hunters. With a roar, it prepares to attack the hunters who were there. One of the hunters runs to help his colleague, who was down and injured. He says it's useless because, with its regeneration, they're out of options. Suddenly, a basin falls from the sky and hits the monster on the head. The trap was a giant wash basin that fell from the sky to humiliate it. Calling out to the monster, he tells the beast to look at him and stop attacking. Challenging the creature, he says he'll fight anytime it wants. The monster then turns and prepares a heat attack against the young man. A hunter notes that it's a heat attack and that he's provoking the monster. The monster fires the attack, unleashing a blast of fire in his direction, but he jumps, dodging the attack and flying over the fiery explosion. The other hunters are astonished, wondering how he dodged and if he can fly, but the leader says that's not it, and it must have been something else. They realize the young man used a trampoline trap to launch himself into the air. He then confirms he used a non-offensive trap to dodge the attack. That trap helped him with aerial combat, allowing him to jump freely. Then he uses his trap creation again, preparing for his attack. He creates another trampoline trap, but this time on top of the monster. Jumping on the trap, he's thrown high into the air, coming face to face with the monster. He then steps on the monster's head, propelling himself closer to his target. Shouting that he'll take it with him, he prepares for the final blow of the fight. He activates a trap, which ensnares the monster's head and pulls it toward the city. It was a custom trap, a huge setup that led straight to hell. He runs through the city, the giant monster following close behind him. Over the radio, a man reports that the area boss has left the stadium. He continues, saying the monster is destroying residential areas in its path. The huntress realizes the monster is heading toward the power substation. The monster is out of control, destroying everything as it chases the young man through the city. Fleeing from an attack, he leaps into the air, narrowly escaping the blast. He then lands a hit on the monster, which strikes back with force. Dodging by a hair, he prepares to use his trap creation ability. He creates a trap that ensnares the monster, stopping it from advancing. The trap holds the monster in place, creating an opening for his next move. He then uses a teleportation trap to escape and create distance. With the successful teleport, he buys a little time to prepare. He says he managed to lure it and now needs to get to the main trap. With his hand on the ground, he says he's going to give the monster some special treatment. He then uses his trap creation, preparing for his final assault. The monster is caught in a trap, stuck in one place. The trap was a larger, stronger version of the unbreakable chain from before. Reinforced chains capture the monster, sealing its movements and stamina, but the creature breaks free, shattering the chains with its brute force. A giant pendulum hits it, but it manages to defend against the blow. A giant saw blade rushes forward, but the monster manages to dodge the attack. The creature tries to counterattack, but the saw strikes it. He says he created instant death traps that would kill normal monsters, but because of its regeneration, he knew it wouldn't be a decisive blow. Leaping onto the monster's back, he prepares for a more brutal attack. He uses his trap creation, unleashing all of his power at once. A shower of giant rocks rains down on the monster, crushing it with force. Immediately after, several fire traps hit it with powerful blows. The Inferno Burner trap strikes it with overwhelming firepower. He calls it a barrage of traps, with rocks and flames from hell. He says that this was the strongest set of traps he could generate. With the monster cornered, its regeneration can no longer keep up with the damage. Trying to escape, the creature flies into the sky, looking for an escape route. But the young man encourages it to fly, as the main trap awaited. He says the trap to finish the monster was right there. With a shout, he activates the last and most powerful trap of all. In the sky, the trap readies itself as the monster flies toward it. The trap fires, hitting the monster square on with a blast of energy. The lightning spear hits the monster, piercing it with a powerful blow. The lightning spear was a trap that pierced flying prey with its strike. The monster is hit, the spear running through its body and dealing a fatal blow. That was the lightning spear trap, the largest offensive trap in the area. He had known about it from the beginning, when he used his scan. With the blow, the monster's body begins to fall from the sky at high speed. Its red eyes begin to fade, indicating the end was near. The monster recovers and charges at him with a roar of fury. He uses a teleportation trap to escape the attack and create distance. The creature glares at him, preparing to counterattack and end the fight. But the lightning spear wasn't just about power, it was also about strategy. He then creates a giant pendulum, which swings toward a power tower. The trap destroys the tower, unleashing all the high-voltage energy in the area. The lightning spear reacts with the electricity, acting as a powerful lightning rod. With this, the combination becomes a devastating boss-level blow. With its body engulfed in flames, the monster is struck by a blast of high-pressure energy. Drawing power from the transmission tower, the blow proved fatal to the creature. In a normal dungeon, a move like that would never actually work. But here, he had an unexpected weapon, a man-made trap. After the strike, he lands on the ground, recovering from the battle's strain. He figures that if the world has become a dungeon, things like this are bound to happen. The monster was caught in a trap from the very beginning, the moment it entered this world. With the boss's defeat, the hunt ends and the dungeon is cleared. He cleared almost the entire area by himself, proving his power was real. His last 2 years had felt like complete darkness, without any hope. He had to endure Asanama's violence, all while dreaming of this day. While he studied dungeons, he worried his family, even though they believed in him. His sister would ask him not to overdo it, because their mother got very worried. But despite all that, he never gave up on his dream of becoming a hunter. Ever since everyone treated him like an outcast, he had always wanted to change. Now he faces the horizon with a new future opening up before him. With the boss defeated, all the monsters in the area completely disappear. Then he turns, ready to figure out his next objective. He looks at the fallen monster's shadow and thinks about his next step. He then heads to the Hunter Association's communication base. The base was malfunctioning, as contact with the outside world had been cut off. But with the dungeon cleared, he believes he can use the satellites again. Arriving at the room's door, he says this is where he needs to go. He then uses his trap creation skill to open the locked door. A stun trap disables the lock with an electric shock. Saying it's an emergency, he enters the room to use the computers. Observing the monitors, he confirms this was the communication room. He checks the equipment and sees that everything seems to be working perfectly. Sitting at the computer, he says it's easy since it doesn't require authentication. He then reboots the system that went down during the widespread communication failure. The computer starts scanning the area, asking him to wait a moment. He wonders if the computer is reading the information from this area. The screen then shows that the area was rank A, and that the dungeon has been completed. He's stunned to learn the area's danger level was so high. Remembering the monsters he faced, he has to agree it makes sense. Suddenly, his eyes widen as he sees new information on the screen. The system was analyzing information from other areas as well, not just this one. An area was a specific territory within the dungeon, divided by cities. Since the world had become a dungeon, the system was trying to analyze all areas. He thinks that with its algorithms, it could map the divisions of the entire world. Seeing the calculation is complete, he wonders if the process is finished. But an error appears, stating the data volume was too large. He understands he can't get information on the whole world, but this was enough. He worries about his mother and sister, who lived in different places than him, so he tries to find out the danger level of the areas where they live. But when he sees the information, he's completely paralyzed by what he discovers. All the surrounding areas had the same rank A difficulty in the system. He stares at the screen, unable to believe what he's seeing. Shocked, he wonders if all analyzable areas were high difficulty. He then thinks the other areas might already be completely destroyed, but he notices a signal and says they haven't been completely wiped out yet. The Sugatate area appeared as complete, indicating the dungeon had been cleared. Soon after, other areas also begin to show the same complete status. He realizes that in several areas, communication has already been successfully restored. With a relieved look, he understands what was happening elsewhere. It wasn't just him. Other hunters were also fighting and clearing the dungeons. Even in the midst of all that chaos, they were clearing them one after another. A new battle for supremacy had already begun after the dungeon break. He sees that many areas have already been cleared of monsters and are marked as complete. The rapid progress was thanks to the S-rank hunters from other districts. After thinking, he decides his priority now is his family's safety. He then checks the Sugidatsu ward, where his mother was currently living. The screen shows the communication network has been recovered and the dungeon cleared. Relieved, he grabs his phone, happy he can finally contact her. She picks up and he shouts, asking his mom about the situation and if she's okay. She explains that the hunters got things under control and asks about the central ward. He calms her down, saying everything is fine and that he's safe too. But she says the call with his sister dropped due to interference. Worried, he falls silent, trying to think of what to do next. He then tells his mom not to move and that he's on his way. Knowing his mother was safe, he now worried about his sister, Shiori. He then searches the computer for the West Ward, where she should be. The screen shows that the West Ward's dungeon has not been cleared yet. He sees a special report from the local hunters about the situation. The report says they've taken control, even though the boss is still active. Suddenly the screen starts to flicker, drawing his attention to a new message. A man appears and says they are no longer pawns of the association. He realizes it's not a broadcast from headquarters and that the signal has been hacked. The man then declares the foundation of an independent nation in the West Ward. Shocked, he realizes his sister's district has suddenly declared independence. A noise startles him, and he turns around, realizing he's not alone. The control room's lock has been broken, and intruders are coming. With no time to gather more information, he uses his trap creation skill to escape. On the building's roof, he creates a trap, preparing to flee. A teleportation trap appears, glowing with purple energy on the ground. The trap flings him to a random location, getting him out of the association building. He says he managed to escape, but his magic is at its limit now. The rare item increased his magic stats, but only his maximum capacity. Trap creation consumes magic, and the battle left him exhausted. He realizes he needs to level up to increase his mana capacity. Suddenly, his cell phone rings, surprised by the call. It was a call from his sister, Shiori, leaving him completely shocked. Answering, he calls out to her, telling her to stay safe wherever she is. Her voice full of static, she asks about the situation in the city. He says everything is fine, and asks if she's safe where she is. She says she's safe and that he doesn't need to worry about her. But the call drops, leaving him worried and unsure of what to do. He wonders if it's really safe, even with monsters still in the area. Remembering the suspicious message, he can't just ignore her situation. Determined, he says he can't let his lack of mana stop him now. He then vows to check on her safety with his own eyes. Meanwhile, at an evacuation shelter, injured civilians were receiving aid. Inside the shelter, a man shouts for them to carry supplies to the evacuees. While carrying a box, he notices that some mana potions are missing. Meanwhile, the young man drinks one of the potions to recover his energy. He says he just borrowed it, but he'll make up for it by working hard to help. After drinking it, he feels his energy returning and feels better. With his mana fully recovered, he won't have to worry for a while, but he's in the central ward, and his sister is in the west ward. The information from the base said the dungeons along the way haven't been cleared. It will be a dangerous journey, and he wonders if he can cross it alone. If he encounters another boss, his mana might run out mid-fight. To avoid that, he needs to level up and increase his mana capacity. He then decides he'll push forward, leveling up along the way. Arriving at the Kawabi ward area, he prepares for his dangerous journey. With one step, he enters the dungeon, ready for his first mission. The dungeon traversal mission finally begins as he enters the area. The once peaceful world became a dungeon filled with dangerous areas. Even if peace returns, a new boss appears, and the battle continues. This was an area where monsters could appear at any moment, but he sees someone coming who looks like a hunter. The men ask if he has any rare items, since they don't have any gear. Saying he unfortunately doesn't, the young man is surrounded by the two hunters. One of them draws his claws, saying it can't be helped in times like these. The young man realizes they're bandits and prepares for combat. With a single strike, the man attacks him, saying he'll take them by force. He dodges the blow and backs away, preparing to counterattack. A cut across his face confirms it. They really were bandits. The men advance to attack him, but he was already ready for the fight. Using trap creation, he prepares to end the fight. A magic circle appears, and the men laugh, not understanding what's happening. A giant weight appears out of nowhere and crushes the two bandits with force. Trapped, the bandits couldn't move, crushed by the weight of the trap. He thinks that if he defeats them, he might gain experience points like with monsters, but he decides against it, as he needs to keep an eye out for violent hunters. The only thing he will hunt are monsters to level up. He then decides to try farming experience using a trap he found earlier. In the plaza of the Kawabi ward, monsters were shooting at a fleeing woman. She screamed as the monsters chased her, relentlessly firing their beams. One of the monsters prepares to fire, aiming at the woman on the ground. Suddenly, a whistle catches the monster's attention, and they turn around. It was a whistling doll, a trap that mischievously lured monsters. With a smile, he says the whistle should make the monsters gather. He sees 4 monsters and says it's not enough to farm experience, so he uses trap creation, preparing for the upcoming battle. A new trap appears, drawing the attention of all nearby monsters. One of them steps on the trap, which ensnares it and prevents it from moving. An iron cage appears, trapping all the monsters in one place. The cage locks with a padlock, preventing the monsters from escaping. The trap was a sturdy cage that completely imprisoned its prey. With the monsters trapped, he says this is how it should be done. He then uses trap creation, preparing for his next move. A new trap appears, and the monster stares at it, not understanding what it is. The monster sees its reflection in a mirror, which creates a copy of it. Confused, it sees its copy and can't understand what's happening. It was a copy mirror, a trap that multiplied the captured monsters. He says that a trap that multiplies monsters was the worst thing possible. Under normal circumstances, it was a trap no one would want to encounter. But inside the cage, he says it didn't matter, and that they could multiply. He then shouts for the monsters to multiply until they fill the cage. The more monsters he defeats, the more experience he'll gain. With a smile, he says he'll defeat them all at once and become stronger. The cage fills with monsters, piling on top of each other. With the cage full, he prepares the final setup for his trap. He then uses trap creation, unleashing all his power at once. A new trap appears, and the monsters stare at it, not understanding what it is. Trapped, they can only watch as the trap approaches, unable to escape. A giant weight appears out of nowhere and crushes all the monsters in the cage. With a smile, he says he caught them with one final trap combo. He calls his creation the Experience Cube, for farming monsters all at once. With hundreds of monsters defeated, his experience skyrockets. A level up notification appears, showing he has become much stronger. Surprised, he sees he has gained a new skill with the level up. The new skill was Trap Domination, which allowed him to control trapped monsters. Shocked, he wonders what this Trap Domination skill he just got is. The screen explains that the skill allows him to subjugate trap-type monsters. Shocked, he wonders if it's a skill that lets him make monsters his allies. Suddenly, he notices a noise and sees a monster approaching. He realizes a monster survived the attack, and that this was the perfect time. With a smile, he wonders if he should test his new skill now. He then creates a magic circle, preparing to use Trap Domination. Shouting the skill's name, he casts it at the surviving monster. The skill hits the monster, but it seems to have no effect on the creature. He realizes the skill bounced off and wasn't working as it should. The status screen explains that the skill only works on trap-type monsters. Understanding the reason for the failure, he says using the skill would be a waste. He then uses Trap Creation, making a sword to finish off the monster. With his level-ups complete, he needs to investigate the area and move on. He says he's been putting it off, but now it's time to do it. He then places his hand on the ground, preparing to use his skill. Using Trap Scan, he searches for any pre-existing traps in the area. He then wonders what's going on here and where the dangers are. The scan reveals a spot where traps are densely packed together. Looking further in, he discovers an underground passage several miles long. Surprised, he wonders how something like this could exist beneath the city. Recovering from the shock, he stands up, understanding what this meant. Determined, he says he has no choice. He has to go to the museum. He then starts walking through the forest, heading toward his objective. He hides behind a tree, observing the area carefully. He stays alert, sensing that something is strange about this place. He finds a lake in the middle of the forest and is surprised by its size. He wonders where the museum could be, looking around the forest. Suddenly, he finds the building, which was hidden among the trees. He thinks about the underground passage and how his instincts might be right about it. As the doors open, he enters the museum, ready for whatever comes next. The place was full of traps, and he needed to move carefully. Moving forward, he had to make sure he didn't get caught by any of them. Suddenly, he sees a chest and notes how obvious the monster is. He then uses trap domination, aiming at the chest. The skill works, and the chest reveals itself to be a disguised monster. With a smile, he confirms the skill worked and that it was a monster. He confirms it was a mimic, a monster disguised as a treasure chest. The mimic's existence was a trap, a different kind of monster. He already knew about the monster-type trap since he scanned the area. The domination was a success, and the monster would become his new ally. A green light appears on the monster's forehead, indicating the skill worked, but suddenly, the monster attacks him, catching him completely by surprise. Surprised, he wonders if the skill didn't work as he expected. With his guard down, he's hit by the attack and thrown back. He falls to the ground, feeling the impact of the monster's blow. He feels the hit, but the monster approaches and starts to act differently. With a new appearance, the creature shows itself to be friendly and docile toward him. Confused, he sees the monster clinging to him and doesn't understand what happened. He then wonders if the creature is now attached to him. The monster's eyes glow, showing it was happy to see its new master. He stares at the monster, still unable to believe what was happening. Despite it being scary, he confirms that the domination worked as it should. Confirming the new skill, he prepares to head to the underground passage. Descending the stairs, he enters the passage, with the monster following close behind. He says the passage didn't originally exist, and that it was created with the dungeon. Whenever a space like this is created, it always has some kind of purpose. The path was made to bypass the monsters and cross the area in one go. He hopes his theory is right, and that he isn't completely wrong. He knows this quicker route is full of dangers. Looking at the monster, he says he should give it a proper name. With a smile, he decides the monster's name will be Mimi. The monster seems to like the name, showing a happy expression on its face. Surprised, he asks if the creature is really happy to have a name. He then tells Mimi to get ready, as the journey ahead will be dangerous. With a nod, the monster confirms it will help, ready for anything. He tells it not to worry, and that they can go together. Opening the door, he braces himself for whatever is on the other side. On the other side, a mysterious and dark figure appears, watching the door. It was a creature in dark armor, emanating a powerful and dangerous aura. Inside a dark hallway, a torch on the wall lights the way. Reaching a large hall, he faces a huge statue of a knight. He then confirms his objective is the door right behind the statue. As he walks through the area, a small chest follows him the whole way. Passing by the statue, he keeps walking toward the exit. With a focused gaze, he stays completely alert for any suspicious movement. Just then, the statue comes to life, raising its sword for a surprise attack. Seeing the danger, he holds out his hand and prepares a defensive skill. Casting his magic, a barrier is created to block the statue's strike. Even with the barrier, the monster prepares to attack with full force. Then the creature strikes, shattering his barrier to pieces. He says he already figured it was a trap monster that activates on approach. His scanning skill had already detected a very dangerous monster. That's why he got closer, intentionally activating the statue's transformation. But something suddenly happens, making him look back quickly. Turning around quickly, he comes face to face with a second knight ready to attack. In a defensive move, he creates a steel barrier to stop the blow. He then realizes the enemy is too strong, easily destroying his defense. Sliding across the floor, he backs away to get some distance from his opponent. Now in position, he stands face to face with the new menacing knight. He observes the monster using skillful random movements. Analyzing its movements, he tries to understand the purpose of these attacks. Realizing the strategy, his eyes widen as he discovers the plan. Aiming for his blind spot, the knight attacks, but is blocked by a shield. He understands the enemy was specifically targeting his back. He says that since it's a trap monster, he doesn't need to fight it directly. Preparing a skill, he states that he just needs it to hit the target. Then he casts his domination technique, firing it at the knight. Getting hit, the monster takes the blow directly to its head. He then wonders why his domination skill doesn't seem to have worked. Looking to the side, he sees the small chest cowering behind a pillar. He understands that his skill is too weak to work on strong monsters. Making a decision, he prepares to put a new plan into action. Saying he'll keep attacking, he believes it will work eventually. Dodging the blows, he fires his skill at the knight's tracks. Running, he says that landing the first hit was just a lucky shot. He focuses on reading its movement patterns to land the skill. Pausing for a moment, he tries to think of a way to counterattack. Placing his hand on the floor, he says he's going to create a trap. He then activates the trap creation, waiting for the monster to approach. The knight appears right behind him, preparing for a surprise attack. With its sword raised, the creature prepares to deliver the final blow. At that moment, a trap unleashes a huge amount of water on the knight. Completely drenched, the monster stands still for a brief moment. Right after, it charges with a strike, but the young man manages to dodge. Bracing himself on the floor, he prepares for the knight's next assault. He then asks if the monster got angry at his prank trap. Moving quickly, the knight charges forward to launch a new attack against him. He says that thanks to drenching the place, a new strategy has emerged. Water drops now form trails on the floor with the knight's every move. Following the trails in the water, he can now read its movement patterns. Aiming at the monster's path, he casts the trap domination again. Firing the technique, he hits the knight dead on during its rapid movement. Trying to defend itself, the knight uses its sword to block the hit. He shouts that he won't stop until the skill finally works. He explains that hitting it repeatedly will make the skill's effect stack. Casting the domination once more, he continues to stack the effect on the monster. With the power accumulating, he says the effect will eventually take hold. He shouts that he's going to turn this high-level monster into his ally. Meanwhile, the chest hides and mimics the casting of the skill. Breathing heavily, he faces the knight, which now seems to be slowly drying off. He says his mana is running out and he can only use the domination one more time. He then wonders if he can capture it in his taming trap. Taking a quick step, the knight advances for what looks like the final attack. He then says he'll bet everything on this last decisive blow. Shouting for it to work, he prepares his skill with all his remaining strength. Using everything he has, he fires the trap domination one last time. With one last effort, he unleashes the skill, sending it rocketing towards the ceiling. After the attack, a thick smoke covers the knight, hiding the outcome of the fight. Panting, he stares into the smoke, trying to see if his last attempt worked. He wonders if the technique worked and if the enemy's movement has stopped. Noticing the killing intent has vanished, he senses a change in the monster. Pointing at the silhouette in the smoke, he confirms the taming was a success. Right after, the knight drops her sword, which clatters to the ground. Kneeling, she apologizes to her master and begs forgiveness for her insolence. He's surprised to hear the creature speak, wondering if it's a special kind of monster. Curious about the situation, he then asks her who she really is. In response, the knight brings both hands to her helmet and begins to remove it. Removing the helmet completely, she reveals her face and long hair. With her face now visible, she remains kneeling, awaiting her master's command. He just watches the kneeling figure before him, still processing everything. She says she is a nameless servant and asks him to give her a name. After a moment's thought, he says he'll choose a name that suits her. He then smiles and decides that from now on, her name will be Jean. Slightly surprised, she repeats the name she just received from her master. Still kneeling, she thanks him and asks him to call her by that name. At that moment, the small chest suddenly appears between them in the hall. The chest lets out a shriek, clearly furious about the situation. Charging at Jean, the little monster seems to try and intimidate her with a leap. Jean says the chest is her senior and that she will dedicate herself to her post. Watching the scene, he wonders if there's a hierarchy among the monsters. He says it's not the time for this, as they need to move on. As he prepares to head for the exit, Jean asks him to wait. She warns him that the battle against the area boss is about to begin. He's shocked when she says the boss of the next room has awakened. She then reveals herself as the gatekeeper, explaining her true function. She explains that her transformation triggered the area boss's awakening. She says the battle is unavoidable if they want to leave this dangerous place. Surprised, he asks if the fight with the area boss is mandatory. He then decides they need to go back and use the surface route. At that, Jean warns him that turning back is no longer an option for them, because the door they used can no longer be moved by human strength. Pointing forward, she says the only way is through the boss's chamber. He complains that a fight now is impossible since he's out of mana. Noticing the chest moving, he asks what's wrong with it. Right after, the little monster opens its mouth, revealing what's inside. From inside, a hand emerges holding a vial with a potion. He sees that the item is actually a mana recovery potion. Taking the potion, he questions if the chest had a storage function. Drinking the liquid, he celebrates, saying they are now fully prepared for the fight. Jean then asks if he can use high-level water magic. She explains the boss is a fire type and requires several water mages. He says water magic is a problem, as the trap was his limit. Standing in the middle of the hall, he comments that he needs to think of a plan. Looking at the small chest, he suddenly seems to get an idea. Talking with Jean, he confirms that the door cannot be opened by humans. With a slight smile on his face, he seems to have found a solution to the problem. He then asks if a monster like her or the chest could open it. She replies that, as a monster, it might be possible to go back the same way. At that moment, the entire place begins to shake, with pieces falling from the ceiling. Jean warns that the dungeon boss has lost its patience and decided to attack. Before them, the boss's door explodes in flames, revealing its presence. Stepping in front of him, she yells for him to use his defense magic. He then creates a barrier, preparing for the incoming attack. Right after, a massive fire explosion destroys everything around them. Surrounded by flames, he shouts that they have nowhere left to go. Within the fire, the group prepares for the inevitable battle about to begin. Raining fire from the ceiling, the boss's attack begins with full force. He's startled by the power, realizing the hall is crumbling. Creating a larger barrier, he tries to protect everyone from the debris. With the floor destroyed, hot stones scatter everywhere. Then, the floor shatters, revealing a huge magic circle underneath. Landing on the platform, the group now finds themselves in a new location. With a serious look, he braces himself for the real challenge. Before them, he finally sees the imposing area boss. He understands that this monster is the very incarnation of fire. He then realizes that all the rooms were just a path to the boss. Analyzing the situation, he remains alert to the imminent danger. He says they need to move quickly before the floor collapses completely. Turning to the chest, he asks it to start acting on its own. Whispering a plan, he instructs the chest to go back the way they came. Seeing the boss attack, Jean shouts a warning for everyone to dodge the blow. Unleashing a powerful strike, the boss attacks with a blast of fire. With focused eyes, he prepares for battle against the monster. They dodge the attack as he creates a small trap on the ground. Coming face to face with the monster, they prepare for the difficult battle. Glancing back quickly, he shouts the little treasure chest's name. The small chest runs safely towards the door they entered through. He says that, as a human, he wouldn't be able to open the locked door, but allied monsters are an exception, allowing them to escape the dungeon safely. Trusting his plan, he says he's betting everything on his small ally. Creating a trap, he opens a huge portal right in front of the boss. This mysterious portal serves as a discharge exit to some unknown location. The boss then attempts a strike, but it's pulled into the portal. Jean screams for her master as he warns of a second wave of attacks. The boss attacks again, firing multiple fire blasts in their direction. Dodging the blows, they leap to escape the enemy's massive attack. Amidst the fireballs, Jean positions herself ready to strike. With a smile, he thanks Jean for all her help. He says he'll stay and act as a decoy, telling her she doesn't need to fight beside him anymore. Ordering her to aim for the left leg, the plan is to seal the boss's movements. Jean replies that she will fulfill her duty, even if it costs her life. Changing scenes, the plan's success depends on the chest following its orders. Remembering the orders, he had told the chest to leave the museum as quickly as possible. After that, it was supposed to run straight through the forest without stopping. Its final destination was the lake at the end of that long path. With a determined look, the small chest prepares to complete its mission. Planting its feet on the ground, the monster prepares for a huge leap. Leaping in front of the moon, it uses all its strength to jump. Back to the fight, the fire boss prepares a powerful energy blast. To defend himself, he creates a massive barrier, blocking the monster's strike. Shouting for Jean, he asks if she's not ready to attack yet. She says she's found an opening, fulfilling her master's request. Dashing forward with speed, she lands a precise blow on the monster's leg. Furious, the creature lets out a roar after being hit. Using his magic, he manages to trap the boss in place with the strike. He then celebrates, as the boss's movement has been sealed under the portal. Diving into the lake, the chest prepares to activate the next part of the plan. Remembering the plan, he had planted something inside the treasure chest earlier. Opening its mouth, the chest reveals the other end of the teleportation portal. Positioned at the bottom, the portal now sucks everything around it towards the exit. Back in the fight, the discharge portal is now right above the monster. Sensing something strange, the boss notices a few drops falling on its head. Then, the drops begin to fall more frequently from the portal above. With a confident smile, he just watches his plan spring into action. As it starts getting wet, the fire boss glares angrily at the portal. And just like that, all the water from the lake begins to pour down on the monster. The lake's water starts pouring out of the portal at full force. Trying to resist, the fire creature is hit by the strong, continuous current. In moments, the entire hall is flooded by the massive amount of water. He shouts for Jean to stay back, shielding her from the forming wave. Placing his hand on the ground, he quickly activates his trap creation skill. A huge wall rises from the floor, splitting the powerful current of water. With the prison wall, he blocks the path of the advancing water. He celebrates the success of his attack plan using the warp portals. To defeat the boss, it would take an army of water mages. That's why he sent the chest to the lake, to use its water. The entry portal at the lake connected to the exit portal in the dungeon. Being a fire type, the area boss takes massive damage from the water. Completely soaked, the monster slowly begins to dissolve in the water. Then, an energy core appears right in the middle of the monster's body. Jean yells that the enemy's core has appeared and he must destroy it. Preparing the final blow, he activates his trap creation with his hand. Creating a trap, a magical sword is summoned for the final attack. Flying through the water, the sword surges forward and strikes the monster's core dead on. Upon impact, the boss's body starts to melt and fall apart. The creature then completely collapses behind the wall he created. As the waterfall stops, the monster's body can no longer be seen. A new item then appears and falls to the ground where the boss once stood. Using his skill, he creates a portal to bring the item closer. At that moment, the little chest returns through the portal, looking very tired from its mission. Celebrating their victory, they praise the little chest for a job well done. As he thanks the chest, something suddenly starts to emerge from the ground. With a startled cry, the chest jumps back from what appeared. From the boss's remains, a small magic sword appears stuck in a stone. Jean tells him to take it, as it's the hidden item of the area. He then repeats in surprise that this is the hidden item she mentioned. He asks if the item is ultra rare, one of those extremely hard to find ones. Jean explains that the sword was at the bottom of the lake and came with the current. Pleased with the new item, he holds the small sword with a smile. Wielding the weapon, he's surprised that it was hidden in the lake. Swinging the sword, the name and description of the rare item appear before him. He says he'll need to use it in battle to discover its unknown effects. Suddenly, a new tremor starts to shake the entire underground passage. Startled by the shaking, he tries to understand what's happening. She calms him down, saying the tremor always follows an area boss's defeat. With the dungeon changing, the exit to the next area finally opens. The scene changes. A manhole opens on the border of two city districts. Climbing out of the manhole, he realizes he's on the border of the neighboring ward. Standing on the street, he says a lot happened, but they managed to make it. Just then, he spots a group of people and wonders what they're doing there. Worried, he tries to hide Jean, as being seen with her would be a problem. Approaching from behind, a man scolds him for being out on the street alone. Claiming it's an emergency, the group of hunters surrounds him for a talk. He then realizes it's the rescue team from the local Hunters Association. Asking to be let through, the leader of the hunter group approaches him. One of the men asks if he is the S-rank rogue hunter, Ninomiya. Showing a tablet, the man says that rumors about him have been spreading. He mentions the rumor that he defeated an area boss all by himself. Remembering the battle, he understands it's not surprising the rumors have spread. The man then invites him to join his squad and work together. He says he can use his authority to complete his hunter registration. Thinking about the offer, he reflects on his dream of becoming a hunter. Clenching his fist, he makes an important decision about his future. Bowing, he simply says he refuses the man's offer. Surprised, the man asks if he plans to remain a rogue hunter. Remaining bowed, he stays silent after giving his final answer to the group. Saying he must have his reasons, the man seems to accept his decision. He then tells him to be careful on his way, leaving with his group. He also warns him about illegal hunters causing trouble in the neighboring ward. Remembering he's seen illegal hunters before, he becomes thoughtful. Thinking about the danger, he decides he needs to stay on his guard just in case. Saying it's safe now, he helps Jean out of the manhole. She asks if he's sure about not joining the other hunters. He says he's already given up on trying to register as an official hunter, because in this situation, he feels he can't trust anyone anymore. Smiling, he says that he actually already has his own companions. Looking at the two of them, he says they are his most reliable allies. The two react, seeming happy with what they just heard from him. Now in the new ward, he says he'll start with a trap scan. To find the best route, he scans the area to see its features. The scan then reveals a map showing the location of various traps. Analyzing the map, he sees the area is filled with traps everywhere. Suddenly, a huge unknown area appears right in the center of the map. At that, his hand begins to glow, leaving him completely surprised by the situation. Looking at the projection, he wonders what that area could be. Arriving at the outskirts of the district, he confirms they've reached the scan location. Standing in front of an amusement park, he tries to identify the mysterious mark. He thinks the mark looked dangerous, like nothing he's ever seen before. His initial goal was to find his sister, Shiori, without making too many detours, but he decides he can't ignore something that seems so dangerous. Walking through the park, he notices the chest making a strange sound. Suddenly, he has a realization about what's happening here. Just ahead, he he comes across a huge stone monument in his path. He says it must be a device created when the area turned into a dungeon. Approaching the object, he finds some kind of warning written on a sign. The sign says not to touch it because a powerful destroyer sleeps there. He wonders what this destroyer could be, thinking it might be a mechanism. Jean then warns him that it could be a dangerous catastrophe trap. She explains it's a rare trap, and its details are a complete mystery. Surprised, he says he's never heard of it in the Hunter Association's records. Getting closer to the monument, he says it's not a good idea to activate the trap. Curious about the trap, he decides it's better to move on for now. Leaving the park, they rest by a tree after walking through the forest. Advancing through the shortcut, he stays alert for any danger in the forest. Just then, he hears something and turns to see what's happening. A monster is attacking a group, causing one of them to scream for everyone to run. Watching the fight, he realizes the association's squad seems inexperienced. The creature attacks, revealing the group's complete lack of coordination. Realizing the danger, he decides he needs to join the fight to help. Running toward the battle, he rushes in to help the group of hunters. Stopping suddenly, he looks up as if something is coming. From the sky, a mysterious attack heads his way at high speed. At that moment, someone appears and prepares to block the blow. With a powerful impact, the strike hits the ground, kicking up dust and debris. With a surprised look on his face, he watches the situation unfold before him. Worried, Jean asks if he's safe after the sudden attack. On the ground, the monster that was attacking the group is defeated in a single blow. He's stunned, watching the person who just defeated the creature. Standing over the monster, the girl shows off her skill with the sword. The group of hunters wonders who she is, this person who defeated the monster. Apologizing, she says she joined the battle suddenly and unexpectedly. Introducing herself, she says her name is Tsumugi Asahina, an S-rank hunter. She explains she was looking for the area's boss under orders from her unit. Hiding, he's surprised to learn that girl is an S-rank hunter. With perfect timing, she invites them to join her on the search mission. One of the hunters seems to hesitate at the invitation they just received. She warns them that finding the boss might not be the end of the mission. With a smile, they seem to accept the invitation to the search mission. Thanking her for saving them, they say they'll help with the search. Celebrating, the group joins her to look for the area's boss. With a smile, she calls for everyone to go, and the search for the boss begins. Watching from a distance, he thinks she's naive for taking a weak group with her. Jean asks if he's going to make contact, but he says he doesn't have time. Determined to leave the forest, he picks up his pace to go his own way. Reaching a river, he comments that the area seems quite vast. As he follows the path, he suddenly stops, feeling that something is wrong. With a strange feeling, he looks around, trying to figure out what it is. He then complains that strange things have been happening since they entered this area. Shouting at the rocks, he tells whoever is hiding there to come out. Behind the rocks, a mysterious figure remains hidden, just watching the group. Getting annoyed with the situation, he prepares his trap creation to attack. Coming out from the rocks, a man desperately begs him not to attack. He says he's just a regular civilian who was passing by. Kneeling on the ground, he begs not to become monster food, please. Confused, he asks what the man meant about monsters. Just then, the small chest suddenly appears, scaring the man on the ground. He understands that with his companions, the man's life seemed to be in danger. Introducing himself as a hunter, he tells the man not to worry about them. The man is surprised, questioning if he's really a hunter. Thanking him profusely, the man grabs his leg, desperately asking for help. He says he's lost and asks to be guided to a safe place. Thinking about the request, he feels it's a problem since he's in a hurry. Even so, he would feel bad just thinking about abandoning the man there. He then considers asking the group of hunters he met earlier for help. Saying he'll find the squad, he tells the man to just follow him. Celebrating his rescue, the man jumps up and says he can go home now. Startled by the chest, the man gets scared and falls backward onto the ground. Apologizing, he says the chest didn't mean any harm and asks for forgiveness. He then thinks that it's dangerous to walk around with monsters in an area like this. Turning to Jean, he asks her and the chest to wait there. Jean replies that she understands the order, while the man watches their interaction. Calling the man to come along, he guides him onto the forest trail. Relieved, the man says he's safe now that he's found a strong hunter. He then warns him not to let his guard down against the region's monsters. With a strange smile, the man gets ready to do something suspicious. He laughs and asks if the naive hunter is only worried about monsters. Lunging forward suddenly, he attempts a surprise attack from behind. With a blank expression, he activates a trap that protects him from the attack. Surprised, the man sees his strike stopped by a defensive barrier. With a counterattack, the trap hits the man, sending him flying. He says he expected this, as the man was just looking for an opportunity. He says he was warned about malicious illegal hunters in this area. On the ground, the man confirms that he is indeed a bad hunter. Getting up, he prepares to show one of his special skills. He reveals that he stole his sword and asks if he had noticed. Shocked, he can't believe his new rare item was stolen from him. He gets angry and questions how he dared to steal his equipment. The man says he was careless, creating distance between them. He explains that he managed to steal the item using his special skill, because his skill allows him to steal the item with the highest rarity. With a smile, he boasts about his rarity stealing ability. He feels invincible, saying he can't lose to anyone with this. At that moment, a trap activates right under the hunter's feet. Surprised, he finds himself caught in a spike trap that appeared. Completely immobilized, he can no longer move freely. Frightened, he ends up dropping the stolen sword, letting it fall to the ground. With his body trapped, the trap tightens more and more. Trapped and suspended, he asks what was done to him. He explains that he activated a trap that was already in the forest. Knowing he'd be caught, he intentionally threw him near the trap. With his trap scan, he can see their locations in advance. Picking up the sword, he says the thief isn't the only one with skills. Smiling, he asks what the thief is going to do now. Pointing the sword, he approaches the trapped man, who stares back in fear. He then asks if he wants to be his test subject for the sword. Desperate, the man screams for him to stop and not do anything to him. In exchange for his life, he offers the location of the area's hidden item. His eyes focused. He is surprised by the revelation of a hidden item. With the sword at his neck, he questions if the man really knows about something like that. Begging to be freed, the man insists he knows where the item is. He then asks if the man truly knows where to find the hidden item, because upon entering the area, he hadn't found any likely spots for it. He thinks that if it were in a place with traps, it would be easy to find. Hidden items are usually protected by a massive number of traps, but sometimes items are in remote locations, hard to find even with his powers. He realizes the item must be in an undetectable place this time. Just then, Jean appears and asks if her master is hurt. She explains that she heard sounds of battle and came running with the small chest. Turning back, he apologizes for making her worry about him. He explains that the man was an illegal hunter and that he just captured him. Drawing her sword, Jean asks him to leave the final blow to her. With a focused gaze, she prepares to strike the trapped illegal hunter. Desperate, the man begs her to wait a moment before she strikes. He yells, pleading for her to at least listen to what he has to say. He shouts that he definitely saw a clue about the area's hidden item. With a serious look, he remains silent, considering the information. The man says he saw the clue while looking for a hunter to attack. Walking through a canyon, he was looking for an opportunity to put his plan into action. Suddenly, the rocks in front of him began to move strangely. A giant stone golem appeared, revealing itself to the illegal hunter. He then questions what that has to do with the hidden item. Annoyed, the man says that a big, strong monster like that could only be guarding the hidden item's location, and that was the only explanation. He thinks the story is a huge stretch. Jean warns him that it's dangerous to blindly trust the man's words. After all, items can be in simple places just to trick hunters. Considering the possibility, he says it might be worth a look. Agreeing, he sheathes his sword and prepares to go after the item. He says the item could be something to help them on their way to Shiori. He tells the man to guide him, but without releasing him from the vine trap. With a serious expression, he prepares to follow the illegal hunter. He then hears a strange sound. Turning to see what it is, nearby, a surprise attack comes from the direction of the forest. With a startled look on his face, he braces for a sudden, unexpected fight. A swift blow knocks him to the ground, but he gets up quickly. On the ground, the illegal hunter is hit by the blow and can't move. Jean cries out for her master, but he replies that he's fine and uninjured. Turning to the person, he faces them, ready for combat at any moment. With her sword drawn, the huntress says she heard rumors about an illegal hunter. He wonders if the S-rank huntress is talking about him. Two hunters appear, eyeing Jean and the small chest with suspicion. They prepare to attack, considering Jean and the chest as enemies. Terrified, the chest sees the hunter's shadows approaching to attack. With a swing, the hunter says he'll defeat the chest and its monsters. Shouting at them, he says the hunters have it all wrong. With a worried look, he prepares for the coming fight. Creating a shield, he defends himself from the S-rank huntress's attack. The impact pushes him back, and he struggles to block the blow. Worried, Jean shouts her master's name, ready to help in the fight. She says that commanding creatures is proof that he's evil. He then yells that she's fighting the wrong person without any proof. Smiling, the illegal hunter takes advantage of the situation to escape. Jean asks if she should annihilate the group, awaiting her master's order. Hearing their conversation, the huntress is surprised to see the monster speaking to him. He says that killing hunters is forbidden, telling Jean to take the chest and leave. Obeying, she grabs the chest and prepares to leave the area immediately. With incredible speed, she dodges their attacks and clears a path to escape. Surprised, the hunters wonder how the monster can be so fast. Watching the escape, The huntress stares at the scene with a serious, focused gaze. She launches an attack, but he dodges and creates a trap on the ground. The huntress charges forward to attack, while the group of hunters just watches the fight. She yells for them to ignore the monsters and focus on the illegal hunter. With a serious look, he faces the huntress who considers him an enemy. She praises his courage, but tells him he has nowhere to run. Surrounded by the group, he now finds himself in a 4-on-1 fight. He then tells her not to get the wrong idea about him. Confused, she just watches him in silence, trying to understand what he said. With a smile, he says this is the perfect chance to test his sword. Holding the sword, he gets ready to test the power of his new item. He then prepares to see what the sword can do in combat. One of the hunters says he can't do anything with just one dagger. Charging at him, the group tells him not to underestimate them in battle. The huntress yells at them not to charge blindly into the attack. He then activates his trap creation, preparing to fight them. With the trap, their weapons are caught by a magic circle that appeared. Saying it's a test, he readies his sword for the first strike. With a swift move, he uses the mystical light blade against the group. The strikes hit the group, throwing them back with the force of the impact. She's surprised to see him creating traps so easily and quickly. Wounded, one of the hunters cries out in pain. Fallen on the ground, they wonder what kind of attack hit them. With a frightened look, the hunter looks at his arm and notices something strange. He then yells that it's poison, caused by the strike that hit him. With the sword in hand, he observes the effect of his newly acquired item. He realizes the sword's power is to apply status effects to opponents. He says that being ultra rare, this can't be its only effect. With a surprised look, he braces for an unexpected attack. With a quick strike, the huntress lunges at him with her sword. She says she won't let him hurt her companions anymore. With a single blow, she manages to deflect the dagger, knocking it away from him. Surprised, he watches his weapon fly far out of his reach. Using his trap creation, he prepares to retrieve his dagger. He then uses a thread, which attaches to the weapon that was thrown away. With the thread attached, he pulls the dagger back to his hand. With a puppet-like motion, the dagger strikes her from behind, surprising her. As she's hit, she's alarmed by the poison weakening her in combat, but she realizes this time it's not poison, but an ice effect. He then confirms that the dagger can change the attribute of its attacks, because he has every effect at his fingertips with this weapon. With her sword in hand, she prepares to continue the fight against him. She yells that she won't be stopped and will use her most serious skills. Closing her eyes for a moment, she concentrates for the next attack. Gripping the sword tightly, she unleashes a power that begins to glow. Leaping into the air, she uses a skill that launches several energy strikes. Seeing the multiple strikes, he says he can't dodge all of them. Using his dagger, he manages to block one of the strikes coming his way. With the force of the impact, his dagger is knocked far away. With a focused gaze, she watches the dagger fly away from him. Without wasting time, she continues the attack with more energy strikes. He looks up in surprise, seeing his dagger flying far into the sky. In a swift move, her hand catches the dagger in midair. Holding the dagger, she says the weapon now belongs to them. Warning him that he's at a disadvantage, she tells him to surrender quietly. Suddenly, the dagger begins to transform, greatly surprising the huntress. To her surprise, the weapon reveals itself to be a common tree branch. Shocked, she can't believe the weapon was a fake all along. With the real dagger, he attacks her from behind, catching her off guard. As she is hit, she can't avoid the blow and ends up wounded. He says the blade she caught was a fake, easily tricking her. Advising her, he says she closes her eyes before a big move. She says the fight isn't over and that she will keep fighting. Her body paralyzed, she falls to the ground, unable to move. He then says she can't even stand up straight anymore because the attack she took had a paralysis effect on the blade. Telling them he won't hurt them anymore, he says they can rest in peace. She asks why he is showing her group so much mercy. Sheathing his sword, he says he has no intention of fighting them. He says he won't do anything else, making his good intentions clear. Helping her up, he asks her to believe him. She says the fact that he didn't defeat them is the greatest proof of all. Apologizing, she feels bad about the huge misunderstanding that occurred. At that moment, a strange sound in the forest catches their attention. With a loud noise, the ground begins to shake violently. Before them, the giant stone golem appears, ready to attack with full force. Stunned by the monster, he wonders what kind of giant creature it is. She then says that the monster is, without a doubt, the area boss. Using a sensor, she confirms it's the illegal boss they were looking for. At that moment, the illegal hunter takes the chance to flee the scene. He's surprised to see the man manage to escape the trap. With a furious expression, the stone golem glares at the fleeing hunter. With a powerful blow, the golem tries to strike the running man. Barely dodging, he keeps running desperately for his life. Fallen on the ground, the man screams for help, begging for his life. He appears behind him with his sword, looking down at the fallen man. With his dagger in hand, he faces the man, ready for combat. Pointing his weapon, he asks if he was the one who brought the monster. He confirms that he warned them about the monster in the canyon ahead. Then he reveals he woke the golem to cause chaos. With a smile, he watches the situation unfold before him. He says he did it to buy time, since he would be hunted anyway. But his calculations went wrong, and he ended up as the monster's target. With the dagger to his neck, he confirms he knew it was an area boss. Hearing a noise, he turns around and is surprised by what he sees. Face to face with the golem, he prepares for the coming fight. With a powerful strike, the monster throws him far away with all its might. She then yells for everyone to fall back as they can't fight it. One of the hunters shouts that the situation is bad, warning of the danger. On the ground, they realize the monster is now targeting them. Using his trap creation skill, he summons a bucket of water over the golem. Using a trap, he draws the monster's attention to himself. He then shouts at the golem, saying that he is its opponent now. Surprised, the huntress wonders what he's doing in this situation. With a furious face, the stone monster turns in his direction. Smiling, he tells the monster to follow him somewhere further away. He thinks he needs to lure the boss away so the hunters can heal. Running, he looks for an easier place to fight the giant golem. Elsewhere, the chest seems to be having fun by the riverbank. With the chest, Jean tells him not to let his guard down against enemies. She says enemies could be very close, even if it doesn't seem like it. She mentions hearing the sound of crumbling rocks, finding it all strange. The ground then starts to shake, startling them both with the loud noise. Before them, the giant stone golem appears, ready for battle. Startled, they didn't expect to find the giant monster right in front of them. With a bruised face, he cries out his master's name, looking worried. Surprised, he finds his companions and realizes he led it right to them. The group gathers and prepares for the great battle against the monster. He tells the two to get ready, as they are going to defeat the area boss. With the monster focused on him, he says avoiding combat is impossible. Worried about the golem's body, he prepares for the tough fight. At that moment, a mysterious attack flies toward the stone golem. With several strikes, the attack hits the stone monster head on. The huntress arrives with her group, preparing for the upcoming battle. She then says they finally caught up to him and that they'll fight together. With a smile, he's happy to see they're there to help. The huntress says that thanks to him, they had time to fully recover. Confused, he asks how she knows his name, since he never told her. Showing her device, she confirms he is the rumored hunter. Introducing herself, she apologizes for not realizing who he was. She says that with his cooperation, the fight will be much easier. One of the hunters says the boss's defense is too strong for them. He continues, saying the monster didn't take any damage from their attacks. She then asks if he has any plan to defeat the enemy, because someone like him must have a better strategy than theirs. Trusting him, she says they'll bet their lives on this difficult fight. Surprised, he questions if she's serious about risking their lives. He wonders if she's reckless or just a kind-hearted person. With focused eyes, he thinks that they've gained some manpower for the fight. Remembering the sign, he gets an idea to defeat the strong enemy. Turning to the side, she seems to have understood the plan he thought of. The group of hunters agrees to join in, saying they're all in this together. With everyone gathered, he says they need to fight the monster together. With the group assembled, they prepare the trap that will defeat the enemy. He says the operation begins by preparing for the enemy's attack. Turning to Jean, he tells her she needs to move separately from the group. One of the hunters shouts, warning that the monster is coming to attack. The group gets ready. The area boss's attack is coming. With a powerful blow, the golem uses both its hands to strike the group. Using his trap creation, he summons several portals to defend against the blow. Surprised, the huntress didn't expect him to do that so suddenly. With the trap, a shock-proof shelter protects everyone from the attack. The hunters are impressed with the defensive skill he just used. Running along the path, Jean moves ahead alone to her assigned destination. One of the hunters asks where the armored monster is going now. He explains that he sent Jean ahead as part of his battle strategy. Luring the boss, the group heads toward the area's amusement park. She then asks him why they're taking the area boss there. He replies that there's a trap there that can crush the stone enemy. With a serious look, he says the trap is their only hope. The monster attacks, but the group barely manages to defend against the blow. He yells for everyone to spread out and deal continuous damage to the enemy. They understand the plan is to use feint attacks to draw its attention. The hunters attack the monster with several strikes from their magical weapons. Two of them use their electric abilities, landing a direct hit on the stone golem. With focused eyes, the golem prepares for a powerful counterattack. One of the hunters attacks with his fire sword, but it has no effect. The golem strikes, hitting the hunter with a blow that sends him flying. The hunter shouts, warning that the enemy's attack hit them first. Creating a trap, he summons a force magnet to move the hunter. Pulled by the magnet, the hunter manages to dodge the monster's blow. He's surprised he dodged the attack without even realizing it. He then tells the group not to worry as he will protect them. They realize he uses traps to provide support in battle. With a firm step, the huntress prepares to attack with full force. She says she'll also give it her all in the fight against the monster. With her secret sword, she readies herself for a powerful and decisive attack. Unleashing her explosive strike, the attack surges toward the stone golem. Taking the hit, the monster feels the full impact of the blow. The golem then counterattacks with a powerful strike aimed at the huntress. He then rushes forward and manages to grab her before she's hit. With a leap, he pulls her out of the giant monster's path. Using his trap creation, he summons a drone to save them from the attack. Holding on to the drone, he narrowly escapes the golem's strike. Flying through the sky, they manage to get away from the dangerous stone monster. He says they'll keep luring the area boss this way, because as long as Jean activates that, their plan will succeed. Running through the park, Jean quickly advances toward her objective. Arriving at the target, she prepares to activate the park's trap. With her sword in hand, she gets ready to trigger the giant mechanism. Shouting for the destroyer to appear, she activates the amusement park's trap. With a strike to the ground, she finally manages to activate the trap's mechanism. Fleeing from the monster, the hunters continue to act as bait for the golem. Tired, one of the hunters says he's about to run out of stamina. Seeing the golem attack, he uses a trap to save the group from the blow. With a portal, he manages to teleport everyone to a safe place. The huntress celebrates, saying they're all safe thanks to his help. He then announces they're almost out of the forest and praises the group. Giving orders to the chest, he tells it to run to the amusement park. With a smoke candle, the chest draws the monster's attention. Flying through the sky, he lures the golem to its final destination. Hanging from the drone, he announces they're almost at the amusement park. He shouts at the boss, telling it to keep following him to the park. Atop the structure, Jean awaits the stone monster's arrival. With the golem approaching, the final trap is ready to be sprung. Attracted by the smoke, the stone golem arrives at the amusement park. With a heavy step, the monster stomps on the ground, shattering everything around it. Following the chest, the golem advances, ready to attack the small monster. At that moment, the chest is hit by one of the giant golem's attacks. With the chest in place, the catastrophe trap is finally activated. With its activation, giant chains are launched toward the stone monster. Being hit, the golem is trapped by the chains, unable to move. With its body immobilized, the monster tries to break free from the chains with its strength. The golem's eyes glow, showing that it has not yet been defeated. With a powerful attack, it manages to break free, throwing the chest far away. With a burst of speed, Jean manages to catch the chest before it hits the ground. Flying with the drone, he asks Jean to protect the small chest. He says they need to weaken the boss more so they can trap it. With his trap creation, he attacks the golem with a rain of fire. Struck by the attack, the monster suffers continuous damage from the flames. With the chest and Jean back, the fight continues with everyone reunited. Weakened, the monster lets out a roar of pain, feeling the damage from the attacks. Even weakened, it prepares for one last attack against the group of hunters. The golem gets trapped in the chains again, which are now stronger. He says the trap will now become a weapon for him. Its master. With a crushing blow, the trap attacks the monster with all its might. Being crushed, the golem screams in pain, feeling the impact of the final blow. With a massive explosion, the stone monster is completely destroyed in the attack. The group of hunters is stunned, not understanding what just happened. Landing with the drone, he rejoins the group after the great explosion. With a smile, he says the area is now safe from the monster. Celebrating their achievement, the group shouts with joy for having defeated the boss. Surprised, the huntress notices that something strange is happening at the battle site. With the boss's defeat, various items and treasures appear scattered on the ground. She then wonders if the items were inside the monster's body. The group of hunters celebrates, saying the items are all theirs now. With its mouth open, the chest looks like it wants to grab all the items for itself. On the ground, he finds an item that looks like a strange bracelet. Picking it up, he notices that the bracelet is glowing unusually. Suddenly, the bracelet begins to shine, revealing a new ability to him. The description says the bracelet is for viewing party members' stats. With focused eyes, he wonders if he can see the stats of others, because normally, devices can only measure the hunter's own stats. Looking at the group, he thinks about what it would be like if he could see their stats. He then decides to test the new item, putting the bracelet on his wrist. With the item activated, he points his hand at the huntress, starting the analysis. In an instant, The analysis is complete, revealing the huntress's information. He sees that her stats are high, but her magic power is low. With a smile, he realizes that she hides her weakness with her techniques. He thinks that seeing his opponent's abilities is a very powerful skill. He asks Jean if the item is one of the area's ultra rares. She confirms, saying that this time it was hidden inside the boss's body. He then remembers that the illegal hunter said the item was nearby. His guess was partially right, as the item was inside the monster. At that moment, the huntress's device starts beeping, receiving a signal. She warns that it must be news from the Hunter Association headquarters. With the boss's defeat, communication was restored and new information arrived. Receiving the transmission, a man appears, addressing the members of the association. He says that all the squads that were sent have been completely crushed. With their complete victory, all the hunters on that mission were annihilated. He warns that any further interference will result in more hunter deaths. The huntress realizes the signal has been hijacked by the rebels from the West Wing. He then remembers they were the ones who sent the suspicious transmission before. With the city in flames, he worries about his sister's safety. Shouting, he declares that judgment will fall upon anyone who invades his state. Shocked, they wonder what he said and what kind of chaotic mission this is. Receiving a report, she hears that the West District has been taken over as an independent state. From the broadcast, it's clear the reconnaissance unit was completely wiped out. Turning to ask for information, she realizes Ninomiya has simply vanished from her side. Then, everyone notices that his monster companions have also disappeared without a trace. She then concludes that Ninomiya is truly an extraordinary and impressive person. Far away, on the district's border, the landscape stretches out, calm and vast. Running across the water, his feet move swiftly without stopping for a single moment. He says there's no time to waste. He needs to get to the West District quickly. Focused, he states that he must rescue Shiori before the chaos spreads any further. Getting closer, he spots the city in the distance, saying he's finally found it. In front of the district entrance, he remarks that Nana must be inside as well. But before moving on, he says he needs to handle the situation with his companions. He explains that entering with monsters would be impossible, so he needs a more discreet plan. Extending his hand, he conjures a skill, shouting the name of the trap creation. From the ground, a mysterious object suddenly emerges, breaking the earth around it. Seeing this, the warrior and the chest simply watch the scene unfold. Then, the complete form of a ghost coffin is revealed to everyone there. With a swift movement, the lid of the large coffin begins to open. Apologizing, he asks if the two of them can get inside the coffin for a moment. He explains that the cage can shelter them, and he can summon them whenever necessary. They reply that they don't mind, even if the place isn't comfortable. Declaring her loyalty, the warrior says they would follow him anywhere. Agreeing with the decision, the chest also shows its loyalty to its master. Once inside the coffin, they ask their master to summon them whenever he needs them. After that, the coffin lid closes completely, sealing the two inside. He then watches the coffin disappear, storing his companions safely. Saying that this should work, he decides it's finally time to go. Walking alone, he heads for the city where Shiori anxiously awaits. Walking down the destroyed street, he carefully observes the scene of devastation around him. Seeing the bodies on the ground, he recognizes the dispatch unit from the Hunters Association. He understands the broadcast was right. They were all wiped out without a chance. Suddenly, a robot appears, standing still behind him amidst the rubble. Holding an injured person, the robot raises a dagger, ready to finish the attack. He realizes they're talking about an independent state, but they haven't even cleared the dungeon yet. Reading a notice, he discovers the area boss is still alive nearby. The robot then approaches him, taking an imminent attack stance. Advancing quickly, the machine prepares to deliver a powerful blow against him. Since he's been spotted, he decides he has no choice but to fight back. Just as he was about to attack, a voice from the top of a building yells for him to wait. The man warns him to reconsider, as the monster is part of the city's defense. Confused, he wonders how a monster can be part of the defense force. He asks who the stranger is, but the man rushes toward him without answering. Ignoring the question, the man says explanations will come later and asks him to follow. Explaining the situation, he says he received orders to grant a special passage. Entering the area, he sees people being served and walking around normally. He is then guided through the streets, passing by a robot and other people. Surprised by the city, he realizes monsters are walking around everywhere. Seeing the interaction, he notes that the monsters seem to be ruling over the humans there, but the man corrects him, saying it's not the monsters who rule the city. Before them, an imposing figure stands between rows of robotic guards. Confused, he asks who that person is and how they know his name. The figure then approaches, revealing themselves as the ruler of this independent state. He then reveals to everyone that he is, in fact, the true king here. Introducing himself as Dojima-jin, he says he hopes they can get along. Recognizing the face, he's stunned to learn that man is the king. Dojima tells him not to make that face, saying that rumors reach them too. He mentions the fame of a hunter who single-handedly defeated an area boss. Understanding the situation, he comments that he also heard the stories told by that acquaintance. Then the hooded man remarks that the two of them seemed quite close in the past. With a shocked expression, he begins to recognize the person under the hood. Revealing his face, Sanema appears before him, leaving him completely stunned. He then asks what he's doing there, as he was sure he had died. Sanema explains that the association found out they had looted the place during the chaos. Shifting to a flashback, he's shown being relentlessly hunted by security forces. During his escape, he ended up crossing several areas to evade pursuit. In the end, he runs alone toward the city during the night. Returning to the present, he says he found the guild that Dojima now leads. Dojima then states that many others there share the same fate as him. Embracing his companion, Sanema says they're just lawless types living freely now. Questioning their allies, he asks if they are just undisciplined hunters and nothing more. With a smile, Dojima says his forces don't actually stop there. Giving an order, he commands one of the monster guards to attack the one next to it. The robot then raises its scythe, preparing to execute the other guard immediately. Receiving the command, the other robot simply awaits the coming blow. With a swift movement, the machine swings its weapon, executing the attack without hesitation. Seeing the scene, Dojima explains that all the monsters are completely under his control. He states that they accept any command, executing it without a second thought. Revealing his ability, he says the power is called Spectre Control. He realizes it's a manipulation ability, similar to his own trap domination. He then understands that Dojima controls common monsters, which can be found anywhere. Meanwhile, he can only command monsters that are the trap type. A little girl runs by, making him think he can't compete in terms of versatility. The girl accidentally bumps into the large robot guard that was standing still. A woman hurries over, pulls the child away, and apologizes to the monster guard. He just watches the woman scold the child, telling her to be more careful on the street. Dojima tells him not to worry, as the monsters protect the defenseless citizens. With his army, the security level is guaranteed against outside threats. He reveals his grand plan to spread his army and rule the entire world. With open arms, he shouts that this land is the beginning of his independent state. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he is shocked by the idea of world domination. Getting back on topic, Dojima says he wants to shift the conversation's focus a bit. He says he has things to ask, but first he'll show him the city. From above, Dojima comments on how different the place is from the outside world. One of his men approaches, calling for the master to discuss a matter. Looking at the wreckage, he thinks he's ended up in a troublesome place without having seen his sister. Seeing that a fight might break out, he decides to analyze Dojima's power as a precaution. With a hand gesture, he activates his ability, preparing for the analysis. He thinks about the king's goal, wanting to know the stats of someone so ambitious. Then, a screen displays all of Dojima's current combat parameters. Analyzing the numbers, he realizes they are not at all impressive for a leader. With stats like these, he questions how someone could master such a powerful ability. Dojima then announces he will ask the real question, telling him to listen. Formally inviting him, he asks if he will join them to create a new world. Remaining silent, he stares at the king with a very serious expression. Directly, he simply states that he completely refuses the offer. He then asserts that what Dojima is trying to create is nothing short of a hell. Understanding the response, Dojima simply remarks that he would only ask once, as promised. Suddenly, he activates a skill, causing chains to appear out of nowhere in his hand. Flying toward him, the chains bind him completely before he can react. He then realizes it's an item that seals the activation of skills. Dojima says he hates killing someone so talented, but there's nothing to be done. Pointing directly at him, Dojima prepares to give his final order. Shouting to his men, he orders them to sentence the intruder to the maximum punishment. He then yells for them to take him to the execution grounds immediately. Chained, he walks down the street with Dojima and his guards. In chains, he thinks he let his guard down, not expecting a restraint item. He realizes Dojima must have seen him as a major threat from the very beginning. The moment he refused, he was sent straight to his execution like a tyrant. Sanema then says he chose the wrong path in life. He comments that the promotion was guaranteed, that he could have even become a minister of the nation. With his back turned, he agrees he made a huge, disastrous mistake. He then clarifies that the mistake wasn't refusing the offer to join them. It was getting involved with people like them in the first place. With a quick movement, he kicks a small can on the ground. The can flies with precision, hitting a specific spot on a nearby wall. Upon impact, the can activates a magic circle that was hidden there. Seeing the circle, a guard shouts that it's a trap and something is coming. Suddenly, another magic circle activates, emanating a large amount of energy. From the circle, a huge vortex of flames spreads, devouring everything in the area. Engulfed in fire, the guards scream and desperately try to escape the massive trap. He then reveals a small device he had been holding in his hand the whole time. Apologizing, he says he used the wall trap because that's just how he fights. The scene changes, showing he had already scanned and learned all the traps in the city. With a snap, the chains binding him shatter into pieces. Now free, he states that he needs to hurry and find Shiori. Suddenly, Sanuma appears in front of him, completely blocking his path. He says this is much better, calling Ninomiya his great rival. With a smile, he says an execution would be boring. He'd much rather have a duel. Shouting that he's not a weakling anymore, he promises to show off his new combat techniques. Charging forward, he prepares a strike and yells out the name of his ability. Calmly, he also prepares for combat, holding his trap device. In the middle of the strike, they are both thrown back by the impact of the attack. After the blow, Sanuma appears with a small cut on his face, but he's still standing. He says his rival has gotten stronger, but tells him not to get cocky over a scratch. He then says that it wasn't just a simple scratch like he thinks. Confused, Sanuma looks at his hand, feeling something strange happening to him. Looking at his arm, he wonders what the hell is happening to his body. Terrified, he realizes his body is slowly turning into solid stone. He explains that the power comes from a rare item that curses anyone it cuts. Using his analysis ability, he begins to check his opponent's stats. A screen then appears, showing all of Sanuma's combat parameters. He warns that even though he's stronger, Sanuma is still not on his level. Declaring the fight over, he simply states that the defeat is all Sanuma's. Shouting, Sanuma tells him not to get ahead of himself just because he won the battle. He warns that the entire city is filled with enemies ready to attack. Cornered, he is surrounded by large robots awaiting a single order. Seeing the firefighters, he wonders if he caused too much of a mess. He understands that such a large responding force puts him at a serious disadvantage. Deciding to retreat, he runs to regroup and try to turn the tables later. Creating a trap, he activates a teleport to escape the imminent danger. Disappearing quickly, he enters the portal to flee from the pursuing robot guards. Confused by his disappearance, the robots stand still, holding a small, dark object. Meanwhile, Sanuma remains petrified, completely unable to move or do anything. Arriving in the sewers, he notes the place had caught his attention during his earlier scan. Walking through the area, he sees that there are special traps everywhere. Facing one of them, he thinks anyone would normally turn back and run, but for him, this dangerous path is the perfect choice for the current situation. He then plans to use the countless traps in the area to fight against the army. Extending his hand, he says that from here on out, it's all or nothing, a gamble. He decides he will determine whether the traps will be his allies or his ruin. Opening a vial, a hand carefully holds the healing potion. Pouring the liquid, the potion is applied directly to Sanuma's petrified head. At that, the petrification begins to crack, slowly breaking the curse's effect. Kneeling on the ground, Sanuma finally recovers, surrounded by the guards watching him. Tired, he faces Dojima, who simply observes his subordinate's recovery. Apologizing to his master, he regrets letting the enemy escape. Dojima then says it's alright, as he has already prepared the next move against him. To get a report, he calls for the scout and asks for Ninomiya's location. With the results in hand, the scout informs him that Ninomiya is still in the tunnel. Dojima questions the report, since many hours have passed since his escape. Suggesting an ambush, the scout says the best plan is to wait at the exit. Finding the situation interesting, Dojima seems to quite like the suggested idea. He then decides they will wait, covering the entire area with numerous traps. Vowing revenge, he says he will make the traitor regret defying a king. Inside the tunnel, he continues to walk calmly through the water without a care. As he keeps walking, he shows great fatigue but doesn't stop moving. Breathing heavily, he seems to be at his physical and energetic limit. Suddenly, he collapses to the ground, falling to his knees from extreme exhaustion. With his mana at half, he realizes his stamina is draining fast. After the fight in the tunnel, he comes across more archers waiting for him. Using his technique several times, he sees an arrow being shot in his direction. Still tired, he prepares to dodge the incoming attack. Dodging several arrows, he manages to avoid all the strikes with his agility. Watching from a distance, Dojima comments that his danger perception is impressive. Despite looking exhausted, he remains standing, ready for whatever comes next. Even though he's tired, Dojima notes that he managed to repel his subordinates with ease. Shouting, he realizes Dojima had been waiting in an ambush the whole time. With a smile, Dojima says he had no choice, since the prisoner escaped. He explains that he became cautious after hearing the rumors, fearing his power. Showing an object, Dojima says he looked for a weakness, just as a precaution. Explaining the plan, Dojima says Sanuma was recruited because he knew his past well. He then reveals that his weakness was nearby all along. With wide eyes, he stares at the displayed image in total disbelief and shock. Screaming, he calls out Shiori's name upon seeing her tied to a large cross. Dojima then reveals that his dear sister had been living in the West District recently. After locating her, he captured her as a hostage just as a precaution and guarantee. Threateningly, he says he will execute his sister right in front of him now. He explains that the punishment will serve as an example for all his opponents. Enraged, he shouts, asking if this is how the king usually operates. Scoffing at the situation, he questions the idea of a king of the world acting this way. He calls him filth, saying he's not worthy of commanding monsters. Vowing to stop him, he prepares to create a trap with his own hands. From the ground, the phantom coffin emerges once more, ready for battle. Positioned to fight, he stands with the coffin by his side against the enemies. Shouting loudly, he orders Jean and Mimi to come out and fight immediately. Leaving the enemies behind, he gives the order for the coffin's lid to open. Emerging from the coffin, the warrior shouts that they will pay for all their deeds. Surprised, Dojima says he can command monsters too, finding him an interesting man. Pointing forward, he informs him that his sister is at the mining site. Shouting, he challenges him to try and save her if he's truly capable. Angrily, he replies that he doesn't need anyone to tell him what to do. Running without hesitation, he charges toward the archers to quickly clear a path. With a smile on his face, Dojima just calls him a foolish traitor. He then reveals that his sister is nothing more than a simple bait for the trap. Without stopping for a second, he continues running through the water with speed and determination. He tells Shiori to hang on, swearing he will save her and protect her from everything. Flashing back several years ago, he was intensely researching on his computer late at night. On the computer, he searched for any useful information on how to become a hunter. Sitting at his desk, he looked to the side with a very serious expression. His sister comes in, saying she heard the news of his awakening as an S rank. He replies that he still doesn't quite understand what happened to him. Explaining the situation, he reveals that his special job is called Trap Master. He says he might not be able to control a power like that. She interrupts him, telling him not to say such things about himself. With her support, she insists that he will become an incredible and very strong hunter. She asks him to get strong to protect her and their mother. Remembering his promise, he is filled with a new and strong determination to fight. Back in the present, he yells to Shiori that she can leave everything to him. Betting everything, he runs towards the cross, focused only on protecting her. Landing on the ground, he prepares for whatever it takes to rescue her. Looking up, he screams Shiori's name, who is tied to the cross. Tied to the cross, she desperately calls for her brother, with tears in her eyes. He then promises he'll get her out of there, asking her to just wait. Facing the cross, he braces himself for the rescue, staring at the terrible scene. Turning his head, he senses a strange presence approaching from behind. Frightened by what's happening, she keeps crying as something materializes there. Suddenly, a giant, multi-headed monster appears, ready to attack. Shocked by the creature, he wonders if it's an area boss. Sanuma then asks if he thought the master would hand over his sister so easily. With a smile, he says the master can easily subdue an area boss. Recognizing the presence, he says Sanuma's name with great anger and contempt. Pointing at him, Sanuma yells that it's time for the execution, telling him to watch. Seeing the monster advance, he desperately screams Shiori's name to warn her. With no other choice, he extends his hand to try and stop the imminent attack. The creature approaches the cross, opening its mouth to devour the girl. In a panic, she just watches the monster getting closer and closer. Suddenly, the giant monster shatters into countless pieces in midair. Celebrating his victory, Sanuma yells that he finally got him, but the monster's head reacts strangely, a look of surprise in its eyes. In reality, the creature had an iron ball in its mouth as a decoy. Having saved her, he holds his sister in his arms as a portal opens. Worried, he asks if Shiori is hurt, telling her to leave the rest to him. She then asks if he came alone, just to rescue her from that place. He confirms that he did, as he had promised to save her from any danger. Reaffirming his promise, he says he would always protect her. Just as chains appear. Just then, he is suddenly bound by the same chains that sealed him before. He realizes it's a restriction that completely seals all of his mana. Sanuma then appears, saying that he once again let his guard down. Holding the chains, he warns that his rival can no longer use his skills. Surprised, he just stares at Sanuma, unable to fully grasp what just happened. He understands that his sister was just bait for the real plan. With a smile, Sanuma says that he's gotten stronger over time. He then asks if he can escape the situation while carrying a dead weight. Chained, he yells for Shiori to run, as she might get caught if she stays. He warns her that he knew about the trap, but came to ensure she would survive. Before them, the monster's foot prepares to deliver a crushing blow. The giant creature looms over them, preparing the final attack. Screaming for Shiori not to look back, he begs for her to at least get away. She refuses to run, saying she won't leave him behind no matter what. One of the monster's heads begins to charge a powerful energy blast. Frozen, the two siblings just watch the imminent attack coming their way. Suddenly, the creature is hit by several blows, interrupting its attack. The force of the impact sends Sanuma flying, and he falls without reacting. Not understanding what happened, they look into the smoke that has filled the area. Walking towards them, a figure says she suspected he would be in the area. Wielding her sword, she reveals herself, declaring she came to help fight. He asks Tsumugi what she's doing in such a dangerous place. Lying on the ground, Sanuma watches as he thanks her for saving him. Furious, he gets up and runs, yelling at them not to mess with him. Holding his weapon, he says he was so close to getting his revenge. With a scream, he charges Tsumugi, screaming that he'd been so close to killing her. He is then stopped by a completely unexpected blow. With a counterattack, he hits Sanuma head-on, throwing him far away with great force. Defeated on the ground, Sanuma is left unable to continue fighting the three of them. She says he's despicable, then thanks him for saving her life. Suddenly, the monster gets back up, showing it's still alive and ready. He realizes it's dangerous to leave Shiori there, but he has no mana to escape. Asking for a favor, he begs Tsumugi to take his sister somewhere safe. Agreeing to his request, she prepares to get Shiori out of there as quickly as possible. Yelling for them to go, he watches his sister call out to him as she's taken away. Looking up at the sky, he seems calm and relieved that they are safe now. Believing they will meet again, she asks him not to lose no matter what. Agreeing with a yes, he turns with determination towards the great battle to come. Facing the area boss, he prepares for the fight that's about to begin. With its ultimate skill, the monster prepares to attack with all its might. Vowing to defeat it, he also prepares for the final showdown. Stepping on a trap, he's propelled into the air, getting ready for battle. In the air, he's surrounded by the monster's multiple heads, which attack him all at once. One of the heads then fires a powerful energy blast in his direction. Using a trap creation, he manages to block the attack with a diamond shield. He understands that by defeating the boss, Dojima's entire monster army will disappear. To defeat the creature, he needs to destroy the core located at the base of its neck. While the heads protect the core, he charges directly for the weak spot. Leaping into range, he notices the creature's defense weakens there. Shouting that this is the final blow, he readies his most powerful attack to end it all. Positioned above the core, he dives down to deliver the decisive blow to the massive creature. Shocked by the scene, the subordinate is startled to realize that it's a trap. Suddenly, he's caught in the center of an immense energy explosion. A gigantic explosion erupts into the sky, completely destroying the creature in the process. Lying on the ground, Sanuma coughs amidst the dust and destruction. Not understanding a thing, he wonders what the hell just happened. He gets up and looks for Ninomiya, asking where he went. Before him, the giant creature rises imposingly, ready for the great battle. With a smirk, he says that not even his rival could beat the boss. Seeing his enemy on the ground, he calls him a weak, amateur hunter. Flashing back in time, she calls out to her brother, trying to wake him from his sleep. She then asks why he's so quiet and not answering. With a bruised face, he listens to her talk about the bullying he's been suffering at school. She says it's wrong, but he just asks her to get the kit. Kneeling, she says she didn't want to bring it up, but felt she had to. She then asks if the bullying is because he wants to become a hunter. He says he's already decided he'll become a hunter to protect everyone. Even so, she just watches him with a look of deep worry and sadness. She says she can't stand seeing him hurt, asking him not to carry everything alone. Back in the present, he suddenly awakens, his eyes snapping open. Getting up from the ground, he stands to face the giant creature. Realizing the situation, he braces himself for the worst that is yet to come. As the monster prepares to attack, he holds out his hand, anticipating his own death. His hand is then firmly grasped by another that suddenly appears. The warrior appears and defends against the attack, shouting her great master's name. With the arrival of Jean and Mimi, he's surprised that they came. Apologizing, the warrior says she sensed the danger her master was in. Even though they disobeyed orders, they came to help in the battle against the surrounding enemies. Surprised by their actions, he looks at the two companions who came to save him. With a smile on his face, he simply thanks them both for all their help. The warrior and the chest say they would do anything for their master. The three of them then take a stance to fight the great, multi-headed monster together. Making a request, he prepares to attack as the monster fires off its blows. He asks them to hold off the monster's attacks for a short time. Stepping forward, the two prepare for the great and difficult battle ahead. He says that even though he can't do it alone, he needs to do something to turn the tide. With their help, He gets ready to use his best trap. Remembering the trap he prepared, he says it's the only one that can win. Charging at the monster, Jean strikes one of the heads with a powerful blow. The chest then gets into position and places a bomb at the giant monster's foot. The bomb activates, preparing to explode in a few seconds and deal damage. Suddenly, a massive explosion goes off, hitting the multi-headed creature head-on. Celebrating their success, Jean praises Mimi's great and impressive skill, but the creature suddenly attacks, forcing the two to defend against the surprise blow. Surprised by its recovery, she realizes the monster's wounds have already healed. The creature stands up, showing its incredible ability to recover quickly. With no strength left to continue, she says they can't face the monster, but the chest corrects her, stating that they do have enough strength. Praising the two of them, he prepares for the final part of his plan. She then wonders if this is also one of her great master's traps. With a command, he prepares to unleash the trap's power. Creating the trap, he places his hand on the ground to activate its power. From the ground, the trap spreads, shattering the earth across the entire area. Then, several coffins emerge from the ground, spreading throughout the area. He then positions himself beside the phantom coffin, a cage for monsters. With a determined look, he declares he's going to end this once and for all. That was his ultimate trap, made to entomb the demonic beasts. Giving an order, he commands the evil spirits to gather. Behind him, a great force of monsters appears, ready to begin the battle. Facing the monster, he readies himself for the final battle against the great boss. With a roar, the creature prepares to attack with all its might. He then reveals that his mana has dropped significantly because of the great battle. Recalling the fight in the tunnel, he says he spent a lot of energy back then. He explains that the tunnel traps generated monsters to attack the enemy. Using his subjugation skill, he turned all the monsters into his allies. He says he spent a lot of mana, but managed to obtain something very valuable. He succeeded in forming the strongest trap monster army ever. With his army, he prepares for the great battle against the area boss. With a determined look, he declares he's going to end this once and for all. Giving the attack order, the monster infantry advances for the great combat. The multi-headed monster then fires a powerful energy blast in his direction. The infantry takes the hit, but continues to advance against their great enemy. One of the monsters charges forward, preparing a powerful strike with its large axe. At that moment, several dragons and other creatures clash in a grand, epic battle. With a powerful blow, the creature attacks one of the infantry monsters. One of the infantry monsters gets in position to attack the great boss up close. Meanwhile, two other monsters prepare a coordinated attack against one of the heads. With a serious expression, he watches the battle unfold before him. Shouting not to waste the effort, they charge forward to cut off the creature's head. Two monsters advance to attack, closing in on the great area boss, but the monster strikes them, sending them both flying with a single blow. A flying monster appears and saves one of the soldiers before he can fall. Grabbing his ally's hand, the soldier is saved at the last second. He then climbs onto the monster, preparing to attack the great boss again. The flying monster readies for battle, displaying its great strength and power. The monster's heads fire energy blasts in all directions relentlessly, but the flying monster manages to dodge all the attacks with its agility. Taking the hits, the flying monster prepares for its counterattack. Firing multiple projectiles, the flying monster attacks the area boss with everything it's got. With a loud roar, the creature is hit head-on by the multiple projectiles. Taking the blow, the monster is engulfed in a massive explosion from all sides, but the infantry monsters are also caught in the blast, being destroyed in the process. With a powerful strike, the creature recovers and attacks with its claws. When the monster is weakened, he prepares to deliver the final blow. He is then launched upwards by a large air propulsion trap. With his sword in hand, he prepares to cut the monster down once and for all. Unleashing the strike, he uses all his strength to defeat the area boss. The blow hits the creature head-on, with lightning striking all around. Seeing the scene, Sanuma wonders if this is really happening right in front of him. He then remembers the order not to let the enemy escape under any circumstances. Alone, he wonders what he can do against such immense power. Afraid, he decides the best option is to hide for now. The flying monster and its allies approach their master to congratulate him. She says the fight was incredible, but he thanks everyone for their help. With a determined look, he warns that the battle isn't really over yet. If the area boss is defeated, the area will finally be completely cleared. With the core exposed, he prepares to destroy the creature and free the district. He then prepares to strike the core with his sword, using all his strength. But the blow is stopped by an energy beam that suddenly hits him. He is thrown backward, not understanding where the attack that hit him came from. The beam prevents him from getting close to the core to deliver the final blow. Dojima's hand holds the monster's core, protecting it from the incoming attack. Dojima says that was a close call, securing the core to keep the boss safe. Shocked by the appearance, he yells Dojima's name, surrounded by his monsters. With the core, Dojima says his objective is to clear the area, but he warns that he won't let that happen so easily. With a serious look, he says it won't be that easy to defeat him. Pointing upwards, Dojima prepares for his great and powerful attack. He states that he was prepared for something like this, with a smile on his face. Inviting him to the final battle, he smiles with a look of great challenge. He stares back at him with a look of pure, immense determination. Raising his hand, Dojima prepares to summon his entire army of monsters. Before him, several monsters appear, completely surrounding him on all sides. With a serious look, he understands what must be done to win. Dojima warns that he'll have to defeat them first to get the core. Amid the chaos, the infantry and the flying monster fight bravely together. Shouting, he orders everyone to hold formation and protect each other. Calling out to Jean and Mimi, he says he has a special task for them. He then tells them to listen carefully and do exactly as he says. Surprised by what he feels, he senses something strange happening around him. Suddenly, a huge explosion goes off, catching him completely off guard. Seeing her master in danger, the warrior screams his name, worried about the situation. She then finds herself surrounded by enemies, cut off from the rest of the group. The chest is also surrounded, attacked by several monsters at once. He realizes he's been cut off from the group by the massive explosion. With a smirk, Dojima asks what he'll do now, warning him the battle isn't over. He says his rival has spent too much mana entering a war of attrition. With his mana dwindling, he knows he must avoid running out at all costs. Seeing the monsters closing in, he prepares for the long and difficult battle ahead. He watches them get closer and closer, ready for the fight to come. Surrounded, he prepares to fight the horde of monsters closing in on him. Creating a trap, he places his hand on the ground to activate his skill. He then uses the trap to jump, launching himself away from the enemies. In the chaos, two monsters end up striking each other. He needs to use low-cost traps to hold them off for a while. In position, he gets ready to use his traps strategically and intelligently. With a serious look, he decides he'll fight with everything he's got. From a distance, Dojima just watches the battle, laughing at his opponent's situation. Suddenly, he notices something strange happening in the middle of the ongoing battle. A doll appears, blowing a whistle to draw the monsters toward it. The doll then turns to one of the monsters, which seems confused by the situation. Using the distraction, he calls the monsters to come closer and closer. He tells them to get as close as they can to the little doll. Creating a trap, a monster steps on a magic circle that appears on the ground. Suddenly, several monsters are launched into the air by the trap's power. A large electric fence appears, electrocuting all the monsters in the air. The skill works, but he realizes he's reaching his physical limit. With his mana draining, he knows he can't use this tactic repeatedly. Suddenly, he's surprised by a monster that appears right in front of him. He braces for the blow, unable to dodge the incoming attack. With a trap, he burns everything around him with immense firepower. Seeing more monsters, he braces for the next approaching wave of enemies. A shower of rocks falls from the sky, crushing all the monsters below. With his mana low, he realizes he has no time to come up with a strategy. He also notices he's not the only one struggling out there. His strongest monsters can't handle the overwhelming number of enemies. Shocked, he realizes his monsters are being pushed back in the battle. He decides he needs to retreat before his mana runs out completely. Running, he tries to get out of the combat zone to recover a bit. As he runs, he looks back and sees the army is still chasing him. From a distance, an archer prepares to fire an arrow in his direction. The arrow is fired with precision, flying at high speed toward its target. Surprised by the attack, he turns to defend himself from the incoming arrow. Setting a trap, he conjures a diamond shield to protect himself from the blow, but with his mana depleted, he realizes he has no more energy to fight. Dojima laughs, saying he used his last bit of mana to defend against a single arrow. Completely defenseless, he faces his enemy, knowing his luck has finally run out. With a smile, Dojima says his luck ran out along with his mana. Saying that a hunter with no mana is finished, he faces his great opponent. With nothing left but to accept his death, he stands still, waiting for the final blow. As he says his goodbyes, Dojima is interrupted by Sanuma, who shouts for his master. Shouting, he declares that he'll be the one to land the final blow in this fight. To get revenge for being looked down on, he charges forward to attack with everything he's got. Standing over his rival, he screams for Ninomiya to just die already. Preparing his strike, he shouts the name of his ability and lunges forward. But suddenly, Dojima strikes Sanuma, interrupting his attack. Fallen on the ground, he is shocked by his own master's actions. Angrily, Dojima tells him not to get ahead of himself and steal his prey. He then asks what Dojima did to his own teammate. In response, Dojima says he only calls someone an ally if they're useful, not a failure. To him, it's only natural to put down a useless worm that gets in the way. Outraged, he shouts that Dojima abandoned those who believed in and followed him this far. Then, Dojima turns and asks if he hadn't warned him before. Reminding him of his goal, he says he will be the king who rules the world. Shouting that his kingdom has no need for the weak, he glares at his subordinate on the ground. With his monsters, he states that all losers and the incapable will be discarded. With a smile, he says that only the strong and competent will be allowed to live. Shocked by the revelation, he just stares at him, unable to say a word. He then asks what will happen to the people in the city who don't fight. With contempt, he declares they will all be discarded, one by one. First, the elderly with no future will be the first to be eliminated by him, then the children with no talent who are of no use to his kingdom. With a malicious look, he asserts that it's natural for scum to die. Shocked, he understands that only the strong survive, including the hunters who follow him. Mockingly, he asks if his rival thinks those useless fools are strong. He reveals he was just using them all temporarily for his own plans and objectives. Now that he has enough soldiers, there's no longer any need to keep them alive. He wonders what use there is for hunters who lack decent skills. Angrily, he calls him arrogant, saying that one day he'll be left all alone. Uncaring, Dojima says he doesn't mind, as long as it leads him to his ideal. With a contemptuous look, he questions what his great ideal is. With a smile, Dojima prepares to reveal his grand and ambitious goal. He says his ideal is to create a world where only the strong survive. Shocked by the revelation, he just stares at the king, completely speechless. Dojima shouts that he doesn't care if humanity is wiped out for his plan. With a smile, he starts laughing at the situation in a very mocking way. Dojima asks what's so funny, but he says it's nothing. With a smile, he says he's grateful for the king's generous words. He then wonders what the people and the hunters of the city would think. With drones flying around, he says that everyone heard what he said. Angrily, Dojima asks what he's hiding behind his back. With a look of shock, Dojima realizes what's about to happen. With a smile, he asks if it's about this, with several drones flying around. Recording every detail, the drones continue to broadcast the scene live for everyone to see. Then he reveals that it was all a trap to expose the king's true colors. Revealing his plan, he says the drones are actually a trap. Designed to frame him, the drones appear to catch people by surprise. He explains that he activated the drones before running out of mana completely. Throwing the chest to the ground, he prepares for the final part of his plan. With a controller in her hands, Mimi gets ready to activate the final trap. He warns that everything that was said was recorded by the drone cameras. The entire recording was broadcast live to the monitors in the city square. With a look of rage, Dojima realizes he's been completely fooled by his rival. He says that Dojima still needs the people and the hunters to serve him. With the truth revealed, he doubts anyone will follow him blindly from now on. Rage consumes Dojima, who can't believe what's happening. The people in the square wonder what that video is, shocked by the revelation. Watching the news, a man says that everything they were promised was a lie. The hunters realize that not only the people, but they themselves are in danger too. The crowd erupts, realizing they've followed a leader who's lost his mind. Still unsure what to do, they just watch the situation unfold. In the square, the crowd grows restless, unsure how to react to the new information. Apologizing, the monsters turn against their own master and attack him. He then declares that with this, Dojima's plan has finally crumbled completely. Suddenly, he notices a bright light coming toward him. Not understanding what it is. Screaming, Dojima tells him to shut up, his eyes filled with pure rage. He says it doesn't matter, as this is nothing more than a minor setback. An archer then fires an arrow, which flies through the air at high speed. Dojima screams that he doesn't care what others think, destroying the drones. He calls him the only obstacle in his path to ultimate power. With his rival out of mana, he yells that his nation will be complete once he's defeated. He then says there will be no one left to stand in his way. With the core in his hands, he prepares to attack his mana-depleted rival. He realizes that's the tool that contained the boss, but it's a different color. Giving the attack order, he throws the tool on the ground to summon the monster. Summoning his true executioner, Dojima prepares for the final battle. The monster was created by fusing 3 large and powerful creatures. With its powers balanced, the monster no longer has any apparent weaknesses. He then questions if his rival can survive against his trump card. With a look of disgust, he finds the idea of fusing monsters grotesque. The monster prepares to attack, its hands catching fire for the strike. The creature attacks with a fiery blow, forcing him to fall back to avoid being hit. Shouting, the archers fire arrows to protect their great and beloved master, but the creature creates a barrier, defending itself from all the incoming arrows. Shocked, the archers can only watch the scene, unable to do anything else. The arrows fall to the ground, failing to hit the large and powerful monster. Seeing the attack, the cavalry charges forward to attack the creature head-on. He then realizes the barrier is what Dojima meant by no weaknesses. Raising its hands, the creature prepares for a massive and powerful attack. An army of monsters appears, preparing to fight the advancing cavalry. Shouting, he calls out to everyone, worried about the great and difficult battle. Laughing at the situation, Dojima just watches his opponent's desperation. He then orders his creation to run wild and attack with all its power. With the monster on the attack, all he can do is run for his life. He realizes the barrier is too strong for normal attacks to get through. With a serious look, he decides to use special attacks for the battle. Yelling, he orders the infantry to fire their flaming arrows at the enemy. The archers fire the arrows, which fly in flames toward the monster. With a smirk, the creature prepares to defend against the incoming attack. The creature then creates a water barrier to protect itself from the fire arrows. He realizes the monster used a water barrier to counter the fire. Shouting, he orders a simultaneous water and wood attack against the monster. One of the monsters readies a wood attack with its whip-like hands. The flying monster unleashes a powerful water strike with all its might. Smirking, the creature prepares to defend against the incoming attack. The creature then creates a fire and wood barrier to protect itself. He realizes the monster can manifest counterattack barriers at will. He understands that each of the 3 monsters used in the fusion has an attribute. The creature generates attribute barriers, creating a defense with no blind spots. With the 3 attributes, they can cover almost any type of enemy attack. This means the only way to win is to attack with a physical strike. A robot appears, preparing to hit him with a powerful close-range blow. Narrowly dodging, he braces for the next blow. With a serious look, he realizes he's been hit by the robot's attack. The robot's hand clenches, preparing to deliver a decisive blow, but the warrior suddenly appears, preparing to defend her great master. She blocks the blow, saving her master from being hit by the robot's attack. The robot grabs an item, ready to use it in its next attack against them. Apologizing, the warrior says she made him wait to get the item. Surprised, he calls out to Jean, who appears with the item in her hands. Handing him the item, she tells him to take what she requested. With a smile, he takes the item, ready to use it in the great battle. With a determined look, he prepares for his next big move. He asks Jean to fall back and go to the city to find something. The item is a mana and stamina recovery potion for the battle. With a smile, he says he knew he could count on Jean to help. With the potion, he can restore some of his mana to keep going. Seeing this, Dojima is enraged by the turn of events in the fight. Yelling, he orders them to kill them both once and for all. He then prepares to drink the potion, recovering his strength to fight. But the monster suddenly attacks him before he can drink the potion. The creature lands a direct, powerful blow, sending him flying. With a grim look, he braces for the worst to come. With his rival down, the fire monster prepares for the final attack. Lying on the ground, he can't understand how he survived the creature's attack. He realizes he's unharmed, without a single scratch from the blow that hit him. Turning his head, he notices something unexpected happening on the ground beside him. Sitting on the ground, he sees the warrior fallen and gravely injured next to him. Yelling, he calls out for Jean, who sacrificed herself to protect him from the blow. In disbelief, he approaches his companion's fallen body on the ground. With a look of rage, he realizes she protected him with her own body. Angrily, Dojima says the monster did something completely unnecessary. With a serious gaze, he watches the scene unfold before him. He realizes that no, he absolutely cannot let it end like this. Holding her in his arms, he begs Jean to hold on and not give up. With her helmet broken, she just stares at him, unable to say a word. Dojima says it's not a bad outcome since she is the main monster. He sits on the ground, carefully holding his companion's body. With a furious look, he tells them not to mess with him like that. He yells that she is his companion, asking if Dojima has any idea how he feels. With a grin, Dojima says he's going to crush him once and for all. With a roar of rage, he tells Dojima to come down for the final battle. Screaming Dojima's name, he glares at him angrily, holding his companion. Uncaring, Dojima says he doesn't need to intervene and orders his monster to attack. Facing the creature, he braces himself for the great and difficult final battle. He realizes that if he doesn't take down the Chimera, the battle will only get worse. Staring at the monster, he wonders how he'll manage to defeat it without his mana. In great pain, the warrior opens her eyes, still recovering from the blow. Apologizing, she regrets taking such a heavy hit in the battle. He tells her not to speak, focusing on getting her out of there safely. Dojima questions if he has the luxury of worrying about a subordinate. He tells her to rest and recover, preparing for the great battle. Calling for Mimi, he gets ready to put his plan into action. He then orders Mimi to take care of Jean and get her away from here. The chest places the warrior on top of itself, preparing to carry her away. Facing the monster, he says it's all right, and that he can do this. With a determined look, he declares that he will fight, because now he has mana. With the power Jean gave him, he readies himself for battle. Shouting for everyone to go, he and his army advance for the great combat. Pointing at the enemy, He orders everyone to take it down with everything they've got. The army of monsters advances in formation for the great and difficult battle. The archers fire flaming arrows attacking the creature. The flying monster shoots a powerful blast of water with all its might. One of the monsters prepares a wood-type attack with its whip-like hands. The creature defends against all attacks with its perfect elemental barriers. A large saw blade emerges from the ground, preparing for the decisive attack. With a serious look, he spots an opening in the great enemy's defense. By blocking the attacks, the creature leaves a perfect opening for a counterattack. He then strikes the monster's joints, causing its body to separate again. The saw hits the creature, breaking the fusion and separating the three monsters. With a smile, he prepares for the final part of his plan. Now he needs to defeat each one, using their elemental weaknesses to win. With a trap, he attacks with the opposing attribute to break the strong barrier. For the wood type, he uses an infernal burner to incinerate everything with fire. For the fire type, he uses a water cannon that shoots a continuous stream. For the water type, he uses a gluttonous plant that hunts for prey. With these attacks, the three monsters are hit right in their weak spots. In desperation, they scream in pain as they are hit by the fatal elemental strikes. With the three monsters defeated, he just watches the settling dust. With a smile, he says that once his mana returns, this will be nothing. He states that an artificial, distorted monster is no match for him. Suddenly, he senses something coming toward him with great speed and force. He is hit head-on by a massive explosion that throws him back. From the impact, he gets up, using thrusters on his feet to move. Impressed, the enemy realizes he actually managed to defeat the great monster. Furious, Dojima screams Ninomiya's name, preparing for battle. He then declares that from now on, he will handle this personally. With a shout, he says that's fine and accepts the challenge. Shouting for him to come, Dojima charges forward for the great and decisive final combat. He then leaps up, preparing to strike Dojima with a blow. With a serious look, Dojima braces for the incoming blow. He then parries the strike, showing his great skill in hand-to-hand combat. He realizes Dojima's hand-to-hand combat is skilled and efficient. With his traps, he prepares to attack the enemy with everything he has. He then sets a trap, preparing for his big, powerful attack. But Dojima hits him with a swift strike, breaking his trap in the process. He's hit square in the face, unable to defend against the attack. With a powerful blow, Dojima sends him flying, leaving him no time to react. He is thrown backward, hitting the ground hard after the blow. Down, he struggles to his feet, preparing to keep fighting. In great pain, he gets ready to attack once more with his traps. With his hands ready, he tries to create a new trap for the fight. With a smirk, Dojima asks what's wrong, enjoying the situation. With a look of despair, he begins to realize what is happening. He is shocked to find that his trap creation powers aren't working. Dojima then calls him slow for not noticing what was happening sooner. With a wicked smile, he calls out Ninomiya's name, preparing for the end. Laughing, he reveals a large red device that was hidden there the whole time. Shocked by its appearance, he wonders what that strange device is. He stares at the large device, not understanding what is happening in front of him.